Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 14th day of June, 2022. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we join together for a brief collective moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the men and women of our armed services that bravely defend our freedoms at home and abroad each day. Let's join together in silence. Thank you. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Martell.
Present.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Grimaldi.
Present.
Okay, everybody is here. I have a couple of resolutions that have been requested be added on to the agenda. So let's take that up first so that the public has as much notification as possible. So Resolution 40650 is the 11th warrant. 40669 is amending the town holiday schedule for this year to include Juneteenth. 40670 ratifies memorandum of agreement with the CSEA regarding the observance of Juneteenth. 40672 is a notice of public hearing to consider requests for 2022 funding to supplement ongoing Community Preservation Fund Water Quality Improvement Project for Mecox Bay. And I don't have the last number.
40674.
You have it, 40674. It's a resolution authorizing a change in a nonconforming use pursuant to Southampton Town Code 330-185.1. Okay, I'll make a motion to walk those five on.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was
Okay.
not provided with a packet with the add-on.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman's going to give me his. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we'll take those up at the end. Okay. So next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular town board meeting of May 24th, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Next, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the special town board meeting of June 2nd, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right, next I'd like to ask our clerk, Cindy Schermeyer, to read the communications.
Following communications have been received in my office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning regarding the 2022 Agricultural District's enrollment period and the 2022 Shellfish Aquaculture Lease Program in Peconic and Gardner's Bay. From the Town of Riverhead, a public hearing notice. Town of Southold, public hearing notices. Village of Sag Harbor, public hearing notices. Village of Southampton Architectural Review Board, location at 405 Captain's Neck Lane in Southampton Village. Village of West Hampton Beach, Zoning Board of Appeals, public hearing notices. 156 Dune Road, West Hampton Beach, 66 Exchange Place, and 107 Old Riverhead Road in West Hampton Beach. From the New York State Liquor License, 30-day advance notice to local municipalities, a new application from the listed entity, and financial disclosure statement filings from the listed individuals. We have also received emails, letters, and land use applications regarding the following: archaeological review of lands in Shinnecock Hills, PSEG, LIPA BH, Bridgehampton to Sag Harbor transmission cable, Zoning Board of Appeals applications for 374 West Neck Road, North Sea, and 37 Lake Drive, also in North Sea. We have received the following bid and request for proposals on June 1st for latex printer and plotter for highway, and for Southampton Youth Services, basketball and tennis court additions. The following reports were filed from the Hampton Bays Water District, the 2021 Drinking Water Quality Report dated May 2022, and from the Town Comptroller, the May 2022 Monthly Financial reports. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Cindy. All right, we do have 11 public hearings scheduled for today. We are running a hybrid meeting, so after the reading of the notice, typically a town staff member will introduce it, and then we will go first to those present. And each speaker will be given 3 minutes to make their comments known. After that, and I will go first from the cards, if you've given us a card, and I ask that you do fill out the card. And then to anyone else who did not fill out a card, and then I will go to our audience through Zoom, that people can also comment that way. And it's going to be a little different logistically, but I'll do my best. So this is the first time running this hybrid type of meeting. All right, so Madam Clerk, would you read the first public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 1, to amend the designation of certain property on Old Country Road, Remsenburg, Spionk, in the CPF project plan and in the CPF stewardship and management plan.
All right, and I will ask Lisa Combrink, our CPF program manager, to introduce this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. The first public hearing today involves a property formerly known as 3D Associates, which is located in the western end of the town. I'm going to point out on the aerial the subject of this public hearing. It's this triangle right here, and this entire green is the former 3D Associates parcel. The assemblage of parcels is 160 acres in total. We purchased that property in March of 2020. The subject of this hearing involves only Lot 5.2, which is the little triangle down at the bottom. That's located at 178 Old Country Road, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900, 326-1, 5.2. It's 6.5 acres in size, and that was categorized in our CPF project plan as within the farmland preservation target area. So the purpose of the hearing today would be for you to consider redesignating that property to Village Hamlet Green Parks and Recreation, not only in the project plan, but also in our stewardship and management plan. That would allow the possible redevelopment of a portion of the entire assemblage, including Lot 5.2, for recreational purposes.
Well, I have a question about this. So
Yes.
there's a much larger... I'm sorry, Day. All right. Charles, if you can provide some additional amplification to the audience so that they could hear, that would be helpful. Charles is administering this meeting for CTV. Lisa, there's a larger section that was farmed or in some sort of agriculture use that's non-wooded, and I thought we were looking to change that entire larger rectangle to more of an active park types of use, not just the small triangle, but the rectangle.
My understanding is it was only the smaller triangle that was designated. You think
No.
that's incorrect?
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Is that how it's noticed? Only the triangle, the 5 acre? I was looking at, it was more like a 12 acre. It's about 160 acre acquisition initially. Some people referred to it as Woodfield Gables originally when this happened. And we were looking to create a park with potentially some ball fields, even a little BMX, possibly a parking area, comfort station, or similar to, in some ways, North Sea or Red Creek Park. So I don't know how it got changed to just a
Yeah, I don't
triangle.
know
Rick, am
So
I-
if you go to the bottom of the check mark in the bigger piece, between the small triangle parcel and the bottom of the check mark, we were looking to process possibly 25 acres to recreational.
That line, right.
Yeah.
I can double-check the designation in CPF, and maybe we can hold it open till next time.
Okay.
And then if we need to make an amendment, we can do that.
Yeah, that whole rectangle.
Right, no, I understand that was the whole area to be used for those purposes. So I'll just confirm which, if all of it was designated
Yeah, it
as
sounds like we may have
farmland.
to renotice it. then.
Okay, if we do, then we do.
So Lisa, is it possible that the larger piece is already recreational?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I thought it
I
was.
don't think
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is, as I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
But is it Hamlet Green? That's,
Right, it's a very large it's a very big
We need to
category,
go.
Village, Hamlet Green, Parks and Recreation,
and that's what you're asking for today on
for
the
the
triangular
triangle piece, yeah.
To just merge into the 5.2, the bigger piece.
Right.
I don't believe that. I think it was, the whole parcel fell into open space. And now a portion of it would be redesignated as for active recreation.
All right,
why don't-
we'll check that for next,
Okay, I appreciate that.
The resolution does reference 5.1 and 5.2 in it, so I
for
think
the use,
Yeah.
right, correct.
So, okay, thank you, Lisa. Let's see if there's anybody from the public who wishes to be heard. Anybody who wishes to be heard just on this first public hearing, hearing number 1, reclassifying this acquisition to allow for some community active use on the disturbed, non-wooded site area of the property. All right, seeing none. Charles, is there anyone online who is requesting to be heard on this matter?
Everyone seems to not be able to hear, so I need to, is the person with their hand up, so I'm gonna let them speak, just so I can tell.
Okay, and where will we see them?
You'll see it on the TV, 1 second.
All right. You know, I believe we're gonna have to renotice this one, so I'm just, Lisa, whether we should leave it open or just
should be facing the
close it and not take an action, and just renotice it, and do it again.
Can we keep it open until we get the clarification on the other bigger piece?
Yeah, I think there's some question there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
let's do that.
Yeah, we could
If
also.
5.1 is already in the designated, then you're okay with the resolution.
All right, Charles, any progress? All right, I warned you, this technological stuff might be a little dicey here, but,
I used to try it with 11 public
I'm
hearings.
working on it.
okay. Jim, can I make a motion to
You want
recess it? And then if we do here, we can reopen it.
to, sure. I think
All right.
with the reservation that we can go back to this one.
Yes, we're gonna have to do it again anyway, so, all right, I'll make a motion to recess the public hearing until Sunday. What's the next hearing date?
Next hearing date is the 28th,
I'm sorry,
Second,
June 20th?
June 28th at 6 PM.
All right, I will make a motion to, is it adjourn it or recess it?
I think it's adjourned, it's fine at this point.
Right, yeah,
If that's what you're
adjourn,
going to
yeah.
be doing. yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting to June 28th.
Second.
Are you going to wait to see if you can get the speaker?
Yeah,
No,
I'd take.
seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So let's move on to the second public hearing notice.
Public hearing number 2, on the acquisition of land of John Leonard and amend the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include the property.
All right, and Lisa Combrink, our CPF Program Manager, will introduce this.
Thank you. The second public hearing concerns property owned by John Leonard, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 979-1-3 in North Sea. It's 10.5 acres. It is shown on an aerial that's on the other side of me. I'm not sure you'll be able to see it. It's this large piece, large parcel in the middle of many preserved properties. This is contained in the project plan in the open space Great Hill Target area. The purchase price for this property is $1.2 million. 10,000 square feet of the property would be reserved for a possible location of communications tower in the future. So that the price would be divided between CPF, which would be $1,174,000, approximately $26,000 out of the general fund for the communications tower area.
Just a quick question, and I know this is a very high elevation property, and that's why it could in the future be useful for emergency communications or otherwise. Are we limiting it to communication towers, or are we allowing municipal uses on the piece that we're buying with general funds?
The discussions were for a communications tower, but if you decide to approve the acquisition, we could make it for general municipal purposes. I think just for funding purposes, the main thing is to distinguish between the sources of funding.
Understood.
So
Yeah.
it's,
So I'm thinking if a tower never gets built there, but it could, let's say, be a site for staging equipment or whatever might make sense for, firefighting equipment, whatever it might be.
Right.
We wouldn't be restricted by our own language.
correct, and we could certainly do that in the approving resolution if you do decide to approve the acquisition.
Okay. All right, any questions for Lisa on this? All right, thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard at this second public hearing related to the acquisition of the Leonard property up in North Sea, near the SYS facility in that area? All right, hearing none. Charles, do we have anyone from our Zoom listening audience that wishes to be heard on this?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will make a motion to close.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that hearing is closed. We'll move on to the third public hearing. Madam Clerk?
Public hearing number 3 on the acquisition of lands of William Corral and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include the property.
Again, Lisa Combrink will introduce this.
Thank you. The third public hearing concerns land owned by William Corral. It's located at the end of Ford's Lane in Tuckahoe, and I will point out on the aerial where the two parcels are located. The two lots are Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 900, 111, 261, and 62. The total acreage is 0.3. The properties are contained in the CPF project plan under the Tuckahoe Woods target area. The acquisition of these two properties would provide an alternate access to the very large protected parcels that are adjacent to this, the largest being 35.8 acres. And it would also allow us to protect some wetlands that are in the adjacent area. The purchase price for this property is $300,000.
For the two?
For the two altogether, yes.
Okay. And is there a road or driveway that accesses
Yes,
this?
yeah.
So you're saying that could be for a fire entrance?
Could be, or it could be an alternate access for the preserve property for anyone who wanted to use that.
Oh, I see. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Combrink? Okay. Is the audience able to hear better now? Okay, yes? Okay. Okay. All right, so is there anyone from our present audience that wishes to be heard on this, the third public hearing on the Corral property? Seeing none. Charles, is there anyone on the Zoom audience that wishes to be heard? Just on the third public hearing, William Corral property.
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is closed. We'll move on to hearing number 4. Sunday?
Public hearing number 4 on the acquisition of lands of Sag Harbor Antique Fire Trucks, Inc., and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include the properties.
Okay, once again, our CPF Program Manager, Lisa Combrick, will introduce us.
Thank you. The last public hearing concerns 3 lots that are owned by the Sag Harbor Antique Fire Trucks, Inc. On the aerial, I'll point out where those are located. The properties are located at 426 and 432 Main Street, in the village of Sag Harbor, and also 1827 Sag Harbor Turnpike. Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 903, 5, 1, 20, and 21, and 900, 24, 4, 34. They total 1.6 acres in size. The Main Street parcels are located in the project plan, are designated in the Village, Hamlet Green Parks and Recreation target area, and the parcel located on the Turnpike is designated in the Eastern GIS Great Swamp Target Preservation Area. The purchase price for all 3 lots together is $775,000.
And just for the board's edification, Ligony Creek runs right through these 3 parcels. The 2 to the north and east are in the village of Sag Harbor, with the creek creating the borderline between the village and Southampton town. The bottom southernlymost parcel is in the town of Southampton. It may not look like it, but it is contiguous to preserved areas to the west. And also just to the north, saltwater Ligony Creek. This is an important fish run through here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Scavone. All right, any questions for Ms. Combrick? So it's $775,000 for the 3.
Correct.
And there's no buildings, or there are buildings on it?
There are no buildings.
No buildings, okay. All right, thank you. Let's go to the audience. Is there anyone from our audience here at Town Hall who wishes to speak on the 4th public hearing to acquire these 3 lots from the Antique Fire Truck Incorporated Company in the Sag Harbor area? Ms. Dayton?
I just wanted to say it's very...
Day, you have to come up. We are recording and filming, and we need to be able to hear you. We want to be able to hear you. So.
Dave Dayton, sorry. I just wanted to say that these parcels are very important for the alewife run of Ligony Creek and part of the Long Pond Greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you, Day. Okay, anyone else from our audience? Okay, seeing none. Charles, is there anyone from our Zoom audience that wishes to be heard on the 4th public hearing? No. Okay. Okay. They can't talk, but they can text, and they can hear, and if they wanted to speak, they could send a text indicating so.
They have to raise their hand.
So they could raise their hand. At least we know they've wanted to speak on this particular hearing. I'll wait one more moment, since I know apparently can hear. Raise your hand if you wish to speak, not in general, on only this, the acquisition of these 3 lots in Sag Harbor area. Charles, is there anyone raising their virtual hand?
I haven't raised my hand.
What was the text? What was the message?
I think it said I haven't raised my hand.
What?
I think it said I haven't raised my hand.
Okay, all right, fine. I will make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that hearing is closed. We'll move on to the 5th public hearing notice. Madam Clerk?
Public hearing number 5, to consider amending Chapter 140 Community Preservation Fund in relation to creating a community housing fund to be funded by a 0.5% supplemental real estate transfer tax.
Thank you, Sunday. Karen Back, our Community and Housing Development Director, is here to introduce us.
Hi. If I could just make a comment, if it might be easier for the public's understanding if we move public hearing number 6, and we do that one first.
You want to do
because-
6, okay.
Yeah,
Actually
because
have
the
it.
fund is an element of the housing plan, so it might just be easier to do that.
And Jim, can we do the two together, or no?
Would you like it together, or would you want, like, the first one first?
If we do 6 first, and then 5.
Okay.
All right, so, Madam Clerk, would you read the 6th public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 6, to consider the adoption of the housing plan as an updated element of the town's comprehensive plan.
Okay, now, it might make sense when we get to the public comment to allow comment on 5 or 6.
I agree, yeah, so we might want to do that
So
together.
I'm going to
Right.
take these together.
Okay,
So, But I
very
will,
good.
now they've both been read, so if you could introduce them both.
Okay, very good. Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor and town board members. The town of Southampton engaged VHB Engineering to prepare a housing plan as an updated element to the town's current comprehensive plan. Over the last several years, VHB reviewed relevant policy, planning documents, census data, and engaged directly with the public through public forums in each of the hamlets in order to define the town's housing needs. What became very clear in the study is that housing affordability is a critical issue to the town of Southampton, and it is essential to the sustainability and growth of the town. Why is it a critical issue? Because having sufficient affordable housing strengthens the town's economy. When employees have access to homes located near their jobs, it ensures that the spending of the residents' income stays within the town. It also supports town residents of all ages. Having housing that our young people can afford will enable them to return to the area after college. Young families with children need starter homes that they can afford and will provide stability for their family. Seniors on a fixed income will be able to continue to live in the town if they choose. It supports the town's essential services like fire, EMS, municipal, and medical services. The plan discusses the unique housing challenges that face Southampton, and it recommends certain actions needed to combat the affordable housing crisis. Let's discuss some of the town's housing needs found in the plan. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development just came out with the new area median income guidelines for our town. Although the area median income for a family of 4 is relatively high at $146,000, VHB's research found that this income doesn't appear to be enough to live in Southampton. VHB outlined several solutions to address this situation. First, there is a need to bridge the affordability gap. 55% of renter households in the town are cost-burdened. This means that these households are paying more than 30% of their income towards housing. This far exceeds the numbers in New York State and Suffolk County. Only 22% of the properties within the town are rental units. This low inventory drives the cost of rent far beyond what is considered fair market rent in our area. Rental housing plays a critical role in the growth of a community, as the younger and lower income population often rely on rental housing to establish themselves within a community before purchasing a home. Increasing the supply of rental housing would result in a decreased rent for many of the town's cost-burdened renter households. The town needs to find creative ways to support the needs of the younger and lower income population while protecting and keeping the look and feel we already see throughout the town. Second, there is a need to retain and attract younger residents. Last quarter, the median home value in Southampton town was $1.4 million. A home at this price is far beyond the reach of most moderate and middle-income families. Because of the high cost of housing, the town is steadily losing its younger population. Entry-level or starter homes that young families can afford to purchase are in short supply, forcing these families to leave the township. The town needs to have housing that is accessible and appealing to the younger population. Third, there is a need to provide housing options for the town's seniors. More than 20% of the town's population is 65 years or older, and this number is expected to increase rapidly. Seniors have a specific set of housing needs. There is a need to have a mix of housing options for senior citizens, including allowing a senior to continue to live in their home on a fixed income or other alternative housing arrangements. Fourth, there is a need for smaller housing units. 29% of town residents live by themselves, and 70% of the town's housing units have 3 or more bedrooms. There is a need in the town for smaller homes to accommodate smaller households. Fifth, the town needs employer housing. Many of Southampton's businesses rely on employees who cannot necessarily afford to live in the town without some sort of assistance. The plan identifies 2 types of employer-based housing that is needed. Smaller unit seasonal housing that is commonly associated with resort communities, and affordable year-round housing for medical, educational, municipal, and volunteer emergency service workers who are vital to keeping our community going. Based on its research, VHB prepared a list of 5 goals to address the town's affordable housing needs. Goal 1, alleviate the housing cost burden for the town's younger residents. The most likely way to accomplish this is with the proposal of the Peconic Bay Community Housing Fund. The creation of this fund will be the subject of the next public hearing presented by my colleague. The creation of this fund will allow for things like down payment assistance and shared equity programs for first-time homebuyers who are town residents or are employed in the town. Goal 2, provide housing options for all. By looking at the needs of its expanding senior citizen population and its physically and developmentally disabled residents, and ensuring that there are equitable living conditions for all renters and homebuyers, and encouraging employer-based housing options. Goal 3, promote creative middle-market housing opportunities by supporting projects that introduce smaller, middle-market housing that creatively protects and maintains the historic look and feel of the community. Goal 4, encourage transit-oriented development, like the popular Spion Commons development. Goal 5, provide housing stock with more affordable options by supporting a greater supply of rental housing and promoting a supply of smaller housing units. The purpose of this public hearing is for you to consider the adoption of the housing plan prepared by VHB as an updated element of the town's comprehensive plan. Additionally, the proposed Peconic Bay Region Community Housing Fund Act requires that each of the 5 East End towns adopt a housing plan before any of the funds can be expended. I will now yield to my colleague.
Okay. Thank you, Kara. I'm glad, I guess Mark McRedmond, Assistant Town Attorney, will introduce the housing referendum, correct, Mark?
I will, yes.
Okay, and then we'll go to the board if they have questions on either of these, and then to the audience.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman, Town Board members, Town Attorney Burke, and members of the public here and watching at home. My colleague Cara spoke earlier to the issue of young people leaving the town due to a scarcity of affordable housing. On a broader note, I can speak personally to that issue, having lost approximately half my friends here on Long Island and most of my extended family to places like North Carolina, Texas, Florida, and I'm fairly certain that someone here today or watching at home has a similar story with regard to the town of Southampton and their family members. But there is hope. On October 8th, 2021, the Peconic Bay Community Housing Fund Act was signed into law. The act authorizes each of the Peconic Bay towns to establish a community housing fund in order to expand housing affordability on the east end of Long Island. This completely dedicated fund will provide a steady revenue stream that will allow the town to work on a number of housing initiatives. So what is community housing? It's a townhouse, a house, or a condominium located anywhere in the town with a purchase price of $1,079,925 or less. And for anyone worried about the type of housing or the quality of people who might be attracted to it, we do have a pamphlet circulating around, and get it to anyone here, that has a nice picture on the front of some condos located right here in Southampton called the Courtyards at Southampton Condos, and that is affordable housing, and I'm sure anyone would agree it looks like a nice place to live. So how would this community housing fund be financed?
Excuse me, it's impossible to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, let me... How's that, a little better? Okay. So how would this community housing fund be financed? It would be financed from a 0.5% real estate transfer fee, similar to the current Community Preservation Fund transfer fee. Any funding provided would get repaid to the fund when the property is sold. It is important to note that the seller of a home does not pay the transfer fee, only a buyer. And this will not increase your property taxes. That's also important to note. So who is eligible to purchase community housing? First-time home buyers who make $155,880 a year for a one- or two-person household are eligible, and people who make $181,860 a year for a three-plus person household. How can the community housing fund be used to create community housing? A first-time homebuyer down payment assistance program, for one. This program would allow a first-time homebuyer who lives or works in the town and who otherwise qualifies to purchase a home with financial assistance in the form of a down payment. It might be a down payment match program, or it may be an amount the town determines. This down payment would be paid back to the fund when the buyer sells or transfers the home. Also, a shared equity program is possible, which would allow the town to provide a silent mortgage to first-time home buyers who live or work in the town of up to 50% of the purchase price. When the home is sold, the loan gets repaid and the town gets a portion of the equity. Both of these home buyer financial assistance programs are available to first-time home buyers who live or work in the town and whose family income does not exceed, as I mentioned earlier, approximately $155,000 for up to two people and approximately $181,000 for three or more people. A one- or two-family home, condominium, or townhome located within the town of Southampton qualifies for the program as long as, again, the purchase price is not over $1,079,000. And these numbers are based, if you're wondering, upon the current Sony Mae First-Time Home Buyers Program as required under the legislation. And what are some other ideas the town is currently looking at to use the money from the housing fund? One is an employer-assisted housing, which would allow employers to create housing for employees of local businesses. Now, this would help not just business owners attract and keep workers, which clearly is good for business in the town, but it's also good for all of us because so many of these workers provide services that we all may, at one time or another, take for granted. Another way is by acquiring dilapidated housing, some people might call them zombie houses or zombie homes, and refurbishing them for first-time home buyers. This not only eliminates blight in an otherwise beautiful neighborhood, but it also allows first-time home buyers to realize their dream of owning a home. In addition, low-interest loans for existing homeowners in order to create affordable accessory apartments. And we could all think for just a moment of how this program would help a senior citizen on a fixed income who wants for extra income but cannot afford the construction
Mark,
costs.
can you speak up? I have audio.
I think my mic, yeah, I lost the mic.
Perhaps a moment.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. If it doesn't come back, I'll bellow as loud as I can.
Project.
Okay. Testing. 1, 2. Yes, we're back? Okay. If I get too loud, somebody in the cheap seats, give me a yell.
No cheap seats.
All right. Low-interest loans for existing homeowners in order to create affordable accessory apartments. This program could help a senior citizen on a fixed income who wants to build an apartment in their home for extra income but cannot afford the construction costs. And think of how that accessory apartment might also help a young professional looking to live and work in the town of Southampton. And finally, housing counseling services for first-time home buyers and for foreclosure prevention assistance. All of these programs would be financed through the 0.5% transfer fee paid by real estate buyers. And again, I can't stress this point enough, current homeowners do not pay these fees, and real estate taxes will not go up, not one penny, because of any of these programs. The town is inviting the public to comment on these ideas and to let the board know what you would like to see the proposed funding used for. And what about exemptions? Are there exemptions from paying the real estate transfer fee? Yes. All first-time home buyers are exempt completely from paying any transfer fees whatsoever. The current exemption for the Community Preservation Fund transfer fee for Southampton, East Hampton, and Shelter Island will change from $250,000 to $400,000 for residential properties with a sales price of $2 million or less. This will result in a decrease in the overall transfer fees paid by many home buyers. And you may see a large chart on the wall there titled Real Estate Transfer Fee Amounts Existing versus Proposed. And for example, if you look at the top line, for a house with a purchase price of $600,000 under the existing Community Preservation Fund transfer fee, that purchase would cost $7,000 in CPF transfer fees. But even with the additional 0.5% added to the CPF for community housing, the number paid actually gets lowered and goes down to $5,000. That trend continues all the way up to a purchase price of $1 million. So any homeowner watching can see that for properties under $1 million, the transfer fee would actually be reduced. So who decides what the fund is used for? An advisory board consisting of 7 to 15 town residents, including representatives from the banking, real estate, and construction industries, as well as representatives from local housing advocacy or human services organizations. And finally, how can a community housing fund be created? It would be enacted by a local law following public hearings like today's and the voters' approval in a townwide mandatory referendum that would appear on the November 2022 ballot. I believe it would be November 8th. And now both Cara and myself are happy to take any questions you may have.
So just before we go to questions, so there's two components here. One is an update to our comprehensive plan. It, in a way, stands alone because even if the referendum isn't put on the ballot or doesn't pass, we still would be updating our comprehensive plan with this housing element. The referendum, which is that extra 0.5%, does require, though, a housing plan that will let the community know how the board would intend to spend the money if the voters did approve it. So they are connected, though in some ways they do stand apart as well. Now, I don't mind when we go to the audience, people coming up and speaking on one or both. If they would just want to talk about the housing plan, they can do that. If they just want to talk about the referendum, they can do that, or I'll give them, more time if they're talking about both of those things. So we can sort that out when we get there. But so let me go to the board. Does the board have any questions for either presenter, Mr. McRedmond or Ms. Back?
I do, Supervisor.
Councilman Scavone?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentations this morning. This, of course, I believe is important legislation for us. Just to underscore a couple of items, Mr. Rick McRedmond, excuse me, Mark. The first-time exemption for home buyers is going to remain in place. That's confirmed.
That is correct. For a first-time home buyer, they will pay no transfer fee whatsoever.
Are there any age restrictions on that, or income restrictions, or?
There are none that I'm aware of.
Thank you. And as far as the tax bill, you mentioned this a number of times. Is anyone in this room going to see any part of this on their tax bill as part of their property tax?
No, property taxes, if this fund is enacted, will not go up one penny for anyone in the town.
Completely funded by the purchaser of homes based on this schedule here.
That's correct.
Okay, good. I'm underscoring some of the things that you already said, and, they're important to me. These are questions that I've been hearing from the community, and the exemption that currently existed was $250,000. Anything under $250,000, they were exempt. They didn't have to pay any community preservation fund. But with the community housing fund, that exemption has gone up to what number?
400,000.
Okay, thank you. And the state legislation also has an interesting caveat that any program that the town employs, and Ms. Bach, this may be for you, that it is required that it is spread throughout the town. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, it cannot focus on one particular area of the town. It cannot just affect one particular hamlet. It has to be spread out throughout the town.
Okay. Thank you, and that's all I wanted to say
Anyone else?
for now.
So, Kara, but the beauty of that is that every community in the town has a different character. Whereas some units, buying derelict properties and improving a neighborhood may work in one part of the town, but not in another. So it gives us several solutions to accomplish our goal. I think it's great.
That's exactly correct, right.
Right. And again, the methodologies or approaches conceived in the housing plan can be rolled out by the town, provided it has the financial resources to do that. The referendum provides significant financial resources to do that. Without that, we could still try to forward some of those approaches, but we may lack the financial abilities to do so.
That's
Okay?
it. Yep.
And I just wanted
Yeah.
to point out one thing. The plan itself is very broad. It's not a very specified, this amount for this much. And it has to be that way because we have to basically see where the need is, correct? And where dollars would go the furthest and help the most people.
Yes, exactly. And, you're going to be taking recommendations from the committee that is appointed. And also, you don't want to kind of box yourselves in. If an opportunity comes up that you feel is a good opportunity for affordable housing, you don't want to be boxed into where, you're going to be using, this amount of money for this program and something else comes up and you just don't have the money now to do that. So it is broad and it's intentionally broad for that reason.
Thank you.
And can be amended in the future, like the CPF plan has been amended a few times.
That's right.
Okay, all right, thank you both.
Well,
Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
want one
Yeah.
clarification, because we're going in and out a little bit with the volume. If you just go over quickly the income maximums, it's that maximum and below. Just want to, it came out differently. I just want, if you can clarify that.
Sure. For these income levels are based upon the Sony May first-time homebuyer programs set by the state. So they will change, they can change. That's what the legislation has that listed. So currently for a family of two, up to two, it's $155,000. For three or more, it's $181,000.
Or less.
Or less, right. That's the maximum.
And one other thing about this, we're here in the town of Southampton presenting this. This morning at 11 o'clock, the town of East Hampton did something quite similar. I had two public hearings, one on their updated comprehensive plan and the other on the referendum as well. And this evening, Sag Harbor is considering some code for accessory dwelling units in the village there, and I know Shelter Island is moving forward on this as well. So, it's kind of interesting that East Hampton had theirs this morning. We are having ours this afternoon, these public hearings.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Okay, we're going to go to the public. I have cards. I'll take them in the order they were received. And the first one I have, I think indicated that she would like to be heard on both of the two hearings. So Ms. Lombardi, Gail Lombardi. So I guess you have 3 minutes on each, so a total of 6, if you wish.
Okay, thank you. And I could hear my voice, which is really scary. So I'm opposed to the CPF. Money's being collected, and I'm opposed to you guys adopting the plan because, to Councilman McNamara's point, it's way too broad. And the reason I say that is because I believe in capital. I'll get on my soapbox of righteousness, as I said to Mr. Schneiderman. I believe in capitalism. I believe capitalism works. And I believe government incentives work. But I believe this board has way too much discretion and abuses their discretion and abuses their power. I shouldn't say they do. I should say your procedures within this board leads to potential abuse of power and discretion. You have a cornucopia of town board resolutions and public hearings on this agenda focusing to how you are land developers. You have the HBO DOD, you have this, you have the housing plan, and you have purchase of 240 Montauk Highway, and I'm speaking on all of them. So that being said, I looked at the housing plan briefly. It is very broad. And so notwithstanding, you'll have advisory committees because they'll be picked by you. There'll be people in industry, and you get the final say. There are no checks and balances on this board. There's a lot of discretion. And that leads, I'm not saying that you do abuse your power or you do abuse your discretion, but that leads to abuse of discretion and lining the pockets of developers and property owners. It is not your job to make sure that property owners get their return on capital and developers get their return on capital. That's not your job. Now, going back to so the first thing is it's way broad and there's use of discretion. To Kara's point, that it had community input, are you serious? There was some virtual meetings during COVID that in Hampton Bays, I think it was 20, and Councilman McNamara, I think you said it was the same for East Quogue when you were on the CAC. And the survey started off not, do you want housing, but what kind of housing do you want? You already had the answer, and you backfilled the community input. I started my journey here 6 years ago with my concerns of how you gathered community input, because I knew a lot of people didn't know what was going on. And instead, you create surveys which you already know the answer, and you backfill the data. This plan is very, very broad, way too broad for this board to adopt, any board to adopt. It needs to be more specific. It needs to nail down where some of the specifics are going to be. Like in Hampton Bays, we happen to have a train. So what does that mean? We're going to have all the apartments, especially when you adopt the HBDOD? It's ridiculous. Way too broad. It needs to be much more detailed, and it's only one side of the equation. It's about the need for affordable housing. Well, what about your secret review? A comprehensive plan is a mandatory secret review. Type 1. The beginning. The amendments, well, I'm not sure. I'm sure your legal counsel advised you whether amendments are mandatory, but I expect my town board to do more than just what's mandatory under secret. How is more people going to affect our quality of life? How is more people going to affect our traffic, our water? How is it? It should be reviewed. Now, you're running against a time frame? Well, you know what? Your lack of getting this done, because it started last year, should not be put on the residents now to move forward. It's not fair to us. You put it on a town board meeting in the middle of the day, in the middle of 12 public hearings. You never presented the plan to the public, never had community, you put the information on the town board website, but you never presented it to the community. And you say you have community input? It's really disgraceful. I mean, 6 years I've been at this battle. It's unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. And Cindy, you say you want people to trust government? This is not the way you get people to trust government. Trying to think what the other points were. Let me just see really quickly. I think, actually, and you said you raised the minimum on the CPF exclusion from $250,000 to $400,000. That minimum exclusion was from 3 of 1999. So are we saying that the housing prices from 1999 to 2022 only went up from 250 to 400? I suspect not. I suspect people that are looking to sell their houses at $400,000 shouldn't be paying anything in taxes, in the community preservation. There aren't any houses for $400,000. So it's really scary. March 1999, I signed my contract the day before the Community Preservation Fund took place on my first house. So I was excluded from it. That's how I know the date. So this is a complete disgrace. That minimum should be much higher than $400,000. And you say it doesn't affect the current owners? Of course it does. When I went to go sell my house, the buyers wanted me to foot the bill.
30 seconds.
So I'm really imploring you to really go back to the drawing board, make that plan a little more detailed, and hold your feet to the fire of your decisions, and not have so much discretion of who you give the money to, where it goes, and you shouldn't have additional, I think I heard the word slush funds, for the 0.25% to fund that, until you get all of this right. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Barty. All right, next up is Ray D'Angelo, also looking to speak on both public hearing 5 and 6. So Ray, you're welcome to take 3 minutes on each topic, if you need it.
Thank you. It's not big enough for me here. What's going on? Oops. I thought Gail was terrific. First of all, I oppose the CPF plan, and the housing plan, I think, is very, very badly flawed. And some of the comments or some of the conclusions, it's science fiction. When you're going to subsidize something, you get more of it. And I don't understand why we have to subsidize people to move into this town. I mean, to say that the population is going to increase and then your taxes aren't going to be affected is fallacy. I mean, we get more people, more families, more children. Hampton Bays pays the highest tax rate in the town because we have the largest school district. More children cost more money. And this is unfair to seniors. I just came from the senior center, and this is a big problem now. The cost of fuel oil, the cost of gasoline, the taxes going up, the water going up. How is this fair to current residents? We elected you people to protect us. You seem to be transfixed with people that don't even live here. And this plan, affordable housing plan, you can't say, everyone, no matter where you are, you have to have equal access to it. You can't guide it to certain people in the town. So I think, and another point here is about subsidizing businesses for the housing of their cost. Why do we have to capitalize these businesses? It's absurd. It's another thing that's unfair to current taxpayers. I just came from the senior center. We have people that are struggling here, and it's like they're lost, where they already are here and they don't matter. We don't matter. We have, for example, the town is getting, Hampton Bays is getting more and more congested, and I wrote to you about the parking problem at the senior center, which has not been addressed. We have people that are 85 years old, 90 years old, with walkers that have to walk from the King Cullen parking lot to the center because you guys put the code enforcement, the fire marshal, the clerk, the town clerk there, and they all park in that parking lot. They're all young people that can park across the street, but they don't. And this is continuing to go on, and while population is recovering from COVID. So I'm here, I'm saying, what are we doing here? Why don't we take care of the people that are here already? Why are we subsidizing this? Why do people have to be subsidized to come here? I understand what they mean, that they can't afford it and everything, but what can we do? I mean, we can't go on and correct every wrong in this country. I mean, how about the current residents? This all affects us. Are they going to subsidize our taxes? How about if you're over 65, you cut our tax bill in half? We deserve it. Why don't you do that for us? Anybody want to do that for us? No. But these people don't even live here. You don't know what else to do for them. I just don't get it. She said about college. Nobody that goes to college is going to come back here, really. There's no opportunity here. There's no jobs for them. They're going to live in the city. It's like science fiction listening to all this nonsense. I'm concerned about the people that live here now. I'm concerned about the seniors, the crisis that we're experiencing, the cost of doing this inflationary period. Have some consideration for us. It's pathetic. I have a lot more to say, but I think I said enough. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
D'Angelo. All right, next is Samantha Grimaldi. Samantha has also indicated she'd like to speak on both 5 and 6, so again, I will afford you the additional time, Samantha.
All right, just let me know if you can't hear me. So I'm for both 5 and 6, and I represent kind of a lot of the population. I represent the homeless population out here. I represent the long-term locals. I was born and raised out here. I graduated at the top of my class of Southampton High School in 2011, and I, like many of my peers, left this town for college and were not able to come back. The reason I'm back here is because I'm a COVID nomad. I sold my home March 20th, 2020, and I couldn't afford living elsewhere, so I came back to my hometown only to find that it is the hardest place in the world, because I have studied around the world to afford to live. Now, I studied in college environmental science and policy with a concentration in sustainability. And I can tell you right now that the housing plan needs to be broad in order to be able to be enacted, because with sustainability, it's constantly changing. It's a super dynamic in order to be able to address the needs of all of the stakeholders, including the aging residents, including those who don't feel that they're being included. You need to be able to constantly adapt and change your plans based on the needs as they are in that moment or as you are seeing them for the future. I also am representing the parents of the children in the district. For example, my children are protected under the McKinley Veto Act, which, you know what, is a part of your guys' taxes, and that's also 1/6 of the children in just Southampton School District alone. I can only imagine what it is at the other children in the district. If you're not familiar with that act, that is an act that protects the rights of students to have a fair and equitable access to education if their families are struggling with housing instability or homelessness due to the outrageous housing costs out here. So I am in support of the Community Fund Act and the laws establishing a preservation fund for it, because we need to be able to do something about this. Less than 1% of the kids that I went to school with are living in this town still, not living with their parents or tripled or quadrupled up in housing. So less than 1% of the locals out here that are my age, I am 28, are out here owning a home of their own. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ones that do own a home of their own, they had some help from their parents. So we have talent leaving this community in massive amounts, and that is going to be an economic crisis, honestly, that will lead to the demise of the Hamptons as we know it. And as in terms of for your concern about children and local families in the community, if you actually have too much of an older population and you don't have enough of a younger population to be able to support the older population, based on like sociological studies, the community would actually collapse because it couldn't sustain itself. You need the younger population to drive your ambulances and to work in your hospitals and to stock your grocery stores and to teach your grandchildren. So that just wouldn't work. And yeah, so I'm just here saying that, like, the homeless population out here, the locals out here, the parents of the kids in the district out here, and the people who are working in your hospitals, the people who are teaching your grandchildren, we support this fund. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, next. All right, Bill Zalaxer. Excuse me if I mispronounced the last name.
No problem, you did just fine.
All right. So you also indicated just community housing. Are you looking to speak on both the first and the second?
It ties both in together, but I'm sure I'll be done within the 3 minutes or so. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Zalaxer, and I'm the president of Long Island Farm Bureau. I'm here today to speak on the community housing plan and to vote for the referendum this November on the ballot. Long Island Farm Bureau supports the need for worker housing, and this plan is an excellent start to recognizing the need for more housing in the town. Long Island Farm Bureau represents more than 600 farm operations in Suffolk County. With over 35,000 acres of farmland, agriculture in Suffolk County ranks as one of the largest counties in all of New York State. In Southampton town, there remains many agricultural operations, and agriculture has long been a part of the heritage and culture of Southampton town, dating back to the days of the settlers. As noted in your report, there are preserved lands in the town, some which are farmland, and agriculture is a part of the rural character of the town and a reason people come to visit and live in Southampton. I would like to raise a few concerns to ensure they are addressed in the report. First, it should be recognized that agriculture is a business and farmers need workers for their operations such as retail stores, resorts, and other businesses. Field workers, managers, marketers, drivers, mechanics, office assistants, and many other positions are involved in farming and fishing operations. These employees all need housing. We appreciate the historic support of the town in recognizing agricultural labor housing in the code and wish to work with you to ensure that housing for on-farm workers is supported, just as housing language for other businesses in the community housing plan is encouraged. In the past, it was commonplace for many of the workers on a farm to reside locally. However, as times have evolved and local residents have been removed from working on the farms, farmers have had to utilize foreign workers through many of the federal programs, being the H-2A programs, the J-1 visa programs, and by law, all of those require us as employers to provide housing for those people. We believe this trend will continue definitely in the future. It is more important than ever for the viability of farming that the town recognize this need and work with the farm community to provide adequate opportunities to ensure the future of the farm community. After all, you can preserve farmland, but if there are no farm operations, a large part of the character of the town will be lost. Southampton Town and its residents have invested millions of dollars in working to preserve farmland to ensure that there will always be farming in the town. We ask that the town board recognize that the state CPF housing legislation specifically includes agriculture as a component and to encourage and support locally in this bill. Just as a side note, I was also involved with Suffolk County on advisory panels, and the number one concern that everybody brought up was affordable housing, and the second was childcare. So it's good to see that there is a progression for affordable housing. It is needed to help maintain and keep all of our communities going. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. All right, next up is Myron Holtz. Also, Myron asked to speak on both number 5 and number 6 as well.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and members of the town board. As many of you may know, that I'm a housing person. I've been involved in housing for over 60 years, starting in 1961 when I graduated from college and started with a job with the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal, and as a temporary statistician, and I retired in 1995 as a Deputy Commissioner for Housing Operations and supervision of all of the government-assisted housing in the state of New York. Right here I have what I consider to be my Bible. It is the housing amendment to the state constitution, which is Article 18 of the Constitution, the public housing law and related acts, and involved in the general municipal law as part in here. And you, as members of the town board, are given a responsibility to protect and guard and protect the good and welfare of the residents of this town. And also, you are supposed to be enhancing the economic viability of the community. And both of these provisions, these proposals, will do so. So I hope that we can count on you to support them. The plan itself is similar to my experience with the New York State Building Construction and Fire Prevention Code, a performance code rather than a specification code. So the code outlined certain criteria that had to be met. So you could build a foundation wall that would withstand a certain pressure, but it could be made of wood if you had bamboo or strong wood. It could be made of concrete if you had enough concrete. It could even be made of cloth if you had enough cloth, but it would be able to perform the required or meet the performance standards rather than specify a specific item that you have to use. You have to use steel, you have to use this, you have to use that. This plan is a performance plan rather than a specification plan. It lays out a bunch of parameters that should be included to enhance the economic viability of this community by providing community housing in any way, shape, or form as outlined in the plan. So it could be condos, it could be co-ops, it could be single families. Ira Renner built in what was then the town of Southampton a 29-room mansion, McMansion. He had 29 rooms in there. I don't know how many bedrooms or bathrooms, but if he had tried to build a 29-unit multifamily development, which would have the same number of bathrooms and bedrooms, he would not be allowed to do it. And that's why Sagaponack formed its own village, so they felt they could control what was being built in their community. And I look at Sandy Hollow, which is a partnership with the Town of Southampton Housing Authority, the town, and Georgica Green Ventures. Originally, it was supposed to be 50 units, but because of, quote, community pressure, and they're going to climb over the fence and swim in my pool, they were able to negotiate it down to, I believe, 38 units. If you look at Sandy Hollow, and I'm a member of the North Sea Community Advisory, Citizens Advisory Committee, and they were against it to begin with. And then once it was built, the members went and looked at it, and they said, this is it? This looks nicer than that condos on County Road 39. It's beautiful. And they said, and oh, by the way, that's the septic system. What? That little building? There are no odors. They couldn't believe that this is what's there. It is beautiful, and I venture to say it is nicer than the private condos on County Road 39. And the people there, some of them I know, I've read the articles in the newspaper about, there's a policeman, there's a member of the fire department, there are people who work at the library, they're community people, and they can afford to live there, and it's beautiful. You drive in there and you wouldn't know that you were in, quote, affordable housing. And I don't see why we can't do more of that. And it's a performance, so you can pick and choose what you want to do, where you want to do it. And on the vote for the funding for it, the real stakeholders here are not LIBA, Long Island Builders Association. They love this because build it and they will come. They'll want to build anything at these kind of prices that are going to be reduced. Because the cost of the building will be the same, but the person who's purchasing it will pay less because the fund will be providing some of the funds. The real stakeholders here are the residents of the town of Southampton, the people who shop at the supermarket, the people who go to the bank, the people who have to go to Southampton Hospital or Peconic Bay General Hospital. The point is we cannot attract and retain enough people to work in these communities, in these stores. That's the problem. You want to go to a fancy restaurant, you have to wait. All the places have signs that say help needed. I think every commercial establishment in town that is looking to hire people should have a sign right at their front door. Please vote for this referendum so we can hire people who can live here and don't have to drive for an hour and a half to get here. When I go up island to go fishing out of Bayshore, I leave at 6 o'clock. I cannot believe the traffic coming east. It used to go back to the canal. Now it's back to West Hampton. It's bumper to bumper. We've got to do something. We have to create housing so that people in the community who work here can afford to live here and just bicycle to work, walk to work. So I'm in favor of both, and I hope that the town board will be able to figure out a way to just move this along and get it done. And it's not capitalism. And it's not socialism. It's providing for the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Myron. All right, next up is Adele Christensen.
Could I ask that my district supervisor, Ian King, speak first?
Do I have him on the list?
Yeah.
One of the later ones.
You just came in, right? Yeah, towards the end.
Sure. Can I trade places with you and him? So Okay, thank you. All right.
Ian King, District EMS Supervisor with Southampton Ambulance. First things first, I just want to thank you guys. I commend you guys on trying to get this done. This has been talked about for years, and it has worked in the past to an extent, but this, I think, is a much more robust program, and I think it's going to work out well. I am here representing the ambulance. Obviously, this is kind of near and dear to my own heart, as well as I have lived here my whole life. My family's been in Southampton for hundreds of years, and if things don't change, I'm gonna have to leave. So yes, this is important to me as well. But I just want to try to explain some of what goes on with emergency services. I'm not going to take too long, I promise. But we have a habit in the ambulance of scouting high school students. We go to the high school, we get seniors. They join, they become drivers. Some of them go on to become EMTs. They go away to college. We keep them as student members. We get them for the summer, we get them for the holidays. Once they graduate, they're gone. We lose them. There's nothing here for them. They can't buy a house, they can't find someplace to live. This is important. People have been referencing, it's going to create more overpopulation. No, this isn't about getting more people to come out necessarily, as much as it's also giving young people someplace to go. We need people to stay. We need people in this community. We need volunteers. We need fire. We need EMS. We need police officers. We need all of that stuff. Programs like this are the only thing that's going to get it done. And like I said, we've talked about stuff for years. I want to bring up an example. We spoke about the Sandy Hollow development. We just got a member out of that development. She moved in, she joined, she saw our sign, said, hey, I want to be a part of you guys. These programs work. Okay, so like I said, I want to thank you guys for trying to get this done. I think if we can drum up as much support as possible, it'll be an important aspect, and I think it's going to help the community all the way around. So I do have some concerns. One of the things that was talked about, one of the price points, $1 million for, I believe it was a condo. For a single person, that I worry might be tough, but I think if you guys can come up with it sounds like there's some leeway. If you can come up with a program that helps single volunteers or local community members, with stuff like that, I think it'll be a good way to go. But I think keeping people in the community is the most important part, because we don't want to see them go. This is a great place to grow up. I love it out here, and I don't want to see anybody else suffer and not be able to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think next is Francis Genovese on this.
My name is Frances Genovese. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, no problem.
Good. Do you need my address?
I have it in the.
Okay. I want to say at the beginning that I don't love capitalism at all, but I agree with absolutely every word that was said by Ms. Lombardi and every word that was said by Mr. D'Angelo. I haven't had time, nor have any of the public had time to really assess what you're putting forth here. Broad is the kindest interpretation that can be put on what you're trying to allocate to yourself. I would like to just raise a few points because, if anything, my feeling about the board's irresponsibility exceeds the previous speakers. And I'd like to bring up the fact that when the CPF fund, which is sloshing money all over the place now, and everyone running around to try to laminate it onto business and physical fitness and other enterprises other than preservation of land, when it was created, there was a proviso in it that it could be used to solve problems. If you have egregious housing problems, homelessness, health issues, you can use the CPF fund. It allows you to do that. However, you want another fund here and unlimited opportunity to use the money. I'd like to bring up a certain thing. I think Ms. Lombardi said it's not your responsibility to make developers or anybody who invests here whole. It's also not the responsibility of the people who live here and pay taxes here to provide housing. The housing problem that you're describing is across the country, let alone the planet. What you're leaving out is the particular nature of the economy here that may have caused inequitability, which is that this is a rich resort community, and everybody here has made a lot of money, tons of money, triple, quadruple what they would make anywhere else. We're talking now about the workers, like, for instance, who will weed for you now for $60 an hour. So they need a place to live. Everybody needs a place to live. everybody had the problem of finding a place to live for themselves when they came here. Anyway, what I'd like to bring up just as an example of the way that you supervise the monies that are running through your hands is, you, Mr. Snyderman, invited the pool people who had been granted land in Red Creek to build a pool for, quote, children to build their character and their swimming abilities. You invited them here. You gave them a $4.9 million CPF purchase. You gave them a parcel of land. The right-of-way to that land was retained by the previous owner. And part of the reason for part of the condition of giving them that parcel of land, $4.9 million parcel of land, was that they would report to you intermittently and tell you how they were going with their fundraising. I have foiled the town every 4 months for the past 2 years. They have never, ever presented a single word as to how to either validate themselves or to how much money they're creating. So if that is an example of how you're going to marshal this amount of money, I'm against it, and I would advise and ask you not to close this public hearing. This is going to be a very, very large issue. If you look at, I have an article from Newsweek, I haven't even had a chance to look at it, from Newsday, which says that the people in Nassau are struggling under the burden that's been transferred over to them because of just such a fund. In fact, it's the same fund, what they are now incurring in taxes. And as a person who's lived in Tuckahoe, which has been the dumping ground of this town for a long time, we will fight you tooth and nail. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. All right, next up is, I guess, Adele. Did you want to speak? Adele Christensen, followed by Curtis Highsmith.
Good afternoon. Thanks for letting me address you. My name is Adele Christensen. I'm an EMT and a driver with the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance. For 5 years, I've been chairman of our membership community. A few years ago, we were advised that the town was considering a housing planning program that would allocate preferences to volunteers in EMS. We were really happy to hear that. I am encouraging you to continue this consideration. I would request that you also avail yourselves of us in your advisory deliberations. And I want to tell you that EMS in this current paradigm is hanging on by a thread. And we paddle really hard to glide across the surface and make things look easy. We have over 1,000 to 1,200 calls per year. We cover a 48-mile square radius with 40 members. 40 members. A lot of our members hold 2 and 3 jobs. I just did a count last night at our membership meeting when we were being awarded by Bridget Fleming for COVID-19 service, and I counted that about 2/3 of our membership has been with our Corps for under 3 years. Now, it takes us about 4 to 6 years to grow a chief. It takes us 2 to 3 years to cultivate leaders who are lieutenants, who operate as duty crew chiefs, and can help us organize ourselves into functional groups. Retaining members is very difficult. We know about paying it forward. A lot of college kids join our Corps. Many young members have been with our Corps for 3 generations. Their parents and uncles are with the fire department. I would call these local people. The problem we have is after they graduate, there's a diaspora. And for us to retain people who are going to stay, we need to find people who are in their mid-20s to 30s. Now, those of them that we have are living with their parents. If they were renting, their rents during COVID were jacked up 50 to 400% overnight. We have a lot of people who serve who live out of district and either sleep on a couch in our little tin can building or sleep at a friend's house. We don't have the capacity to have people living here. As Ian mentioned, we have one new member who is living in the Sandy Hollow Affordable Housing Program. But right now, if people are given an option between hold a second or third job to make my standard of living or volunteer, we're losing them as volunteers. It's very difficult to keep a volunteer system going. Now, a volunteer system is more than just helping out taxpayers and coming in a time of an emergency. It's an important infrastructure of kindness, right? To have somebody be kind to you and take that time out of their life to help people. And that creates a level of comfort and safety in a community. We cannot afford to live in our districts. Perhaps you know of the fire in Hampton on Saturday night. 4 big McMansions were set aflame. There were 17 fire departments, or 13 fire departments and 7 ambulance corps, all safeguarding empty properties. You've got the locals convening who can barely afford to live here, and we're protecting property that is owned by people in absentia. I would consider that perhaps 2 of our 40 members live in the top 1 percentile of our demographic. The rest are working class people who live here, work here, pay their taxes, and raise their families. Yet every year there's more people coming, our call rates increase, and we don't have the resources to live here comfortably. We desperately need you to consider factoring the human infrastructure in the livability of this town. And we're really hoping that you will enable us to continue supporting as volunteers, because every year it's a bigger ask and a bigger give. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adele.
Any questions?
Just a comment. I'd like to just let you know that in goal number 1, we have specific language for our volunteer first responders and how the housing program could help them. We know that very often they are at the centers of our community. And thank you for what you do.
Thank
And
you.
Ian, you too.
Yeah, and I'd just add that we also include not just first responders, but hospital personnel and people serving the elderly who are trying to get into ERs and those problems as well. That all really critical housing that's needed. Otherwise, we won't have anyone like yourself to help good people of the town. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. All right, Curtis Highsmith is up. Curtis, you wanted to speak on both too. You don't have to use the whole time. I feel like it's largely been said.
You're already assuming I'm going to talk too much, huh? First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Mr. Highsmith, just before we start, if we could just not talk while the speakers are speaking. I know, it's a small room despite what the cameras,
Exactly.
show. Thank you.
I kind of want to be last. First, Curtis Highsmith, Executive Director, Town of Southampton Housing Authority. Kind of wanted to be last for 2 reasons. One, just getting over COVID, so don't know. But I do know I'm negative, so I appreciate it. I'm still healing as we go along. And second of all, I wanted to hear what was going to be said. I didn't think there would be opposition, but I wanted to know what the opposition wanted to say and what were some of the concerns. And it seems to be some of the old tunes being said all over again. There's always the rush to judgment with the extremes. First of all, I want to say that I appreciate Kara back. Kara, you did a great job keeping it comprehensive. It has to be because we're kind of neophytes in this process. So we don't know we don't know what the issues may arise. We don't know what the opportunities may arise. So we're kind of learning as we go along. So as we learn, we can modify the plan to be more confined so that we get it right the first time. But if we continue to try to keep a specific idea on what our process is going to be, we limit our opportunity to make those movements. It was an honor for me to be part of that think tank with Theo when we were proposing for that CPF 1% program. So obviously, I definitely support the program. I think it was the first time where all of the East End, Long Island housing enthusiasts and executives can come together and create legislation that I think is going to be extremely beneficial for all, from North Fork as well as South Fork. One of the things that's not being said is the cost of construction that has been rising over the last 3, 4, 5 years. We are the largest housing or affordable housing developer and creator in the town of Southampton. We are your quasi-government or housing entity or agent. But since 2014, we built 20 single-family homes. Most of those units were out of the 72H program. There are opportunities out of the 72H programs that we still have unmet. Bridget Fleming just presented a bill that potentially will infuse more units of 72H units in Southampton Township. That's land and buildings. So we may have an opportunity through these units where we'll be able to fund renovations, alterations, new construction in those units that come up, and they could be quite a few dozen of units that become available for the town. Also, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Just if the audience could please refrain from interrupting the speaker.
In addition to that, interest rates have risen so substantially. So it's become very, very difficult for our agencies. As someone said earlier that developers making a ton of money in projects. Affordable housing developers are not getting rich on projects. We have our books are available. Our books are online. You can take a look and see every single dollar that we make and how we make it. Every single affordable housing development we had. The fact of the matter is our margins are already very small. So impact to the economy, impact to interest rates, impact to anything has a dramatic effect on how we develop. When we can come up with other forms of funding, because even county money right now has become very short, become very limited. So between bank funding, between grants, we're becoming limited on our possibility of funding these projects. So we are very excited the fact that we may have an alternative funding source, alternative funding means to help us in our process to develop more affordable housing. Sorry, dehydrated, obviously from COVID. In closing, what I would say is that we would hope that since the Housing Authority will be one of the agencies vying for this funding, that you would also keep in mind and help us and assist us on opportunities we can do for the town, on opportunities where we can help fund or use funding from this particular means. And we are brought to the table in discussions on opportunities that could be funded. If you have any questions for me.
We're not going to ask any questions, so thank you, though.
I appreciate it.
No, you may not. It's the middle of a public hearing. All right, thank you, Curtis. You are not the last, as you thought. Philip Kamen, if I'm saying that correctly, is next. There's some Purell up there if you need it. He's negative.
Good afternoon. My name's Philip Kamen. I'm the employee supervisor for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance. I've been involved in emergency services in Southampton Town for 42 years as a volunteer and also as a paid employee for the Southampton Ambulance. I'm also the chairman of Suffolk County REMSCO. We oversee 109 EMS agencies throughout the county. And I also represent East End Ambulance Association, which represents Bridgehampton to Montauk, all the EMS agencies. Housing is the biggest problem. It's not just Southampton. It's not just East Hampton. It's the entire county. Our younger people, countywide, cannot afford, and they're moving away. They're getting better jobs elsewhere. So it's not just the employee aspect of it, it's the volunteer aspect of all the emergency services. You have to consider that every volunteer has two jobs. The first job is the one that pays the bills. It's your landscaper that's doing your gardening. It's the person at the store. It's your newspaper reporter. Then when they take that hat off, now they're your EMT, they're your firefighter, or they volunteer at the hospital. The point being is, if you can provide housing for one volunteer, it's also somebody in the community that is putting back to the community as far as a job. Okay? It could also be an employer that has the housing that they can then also, like you were talking about as far as the farmland and the housing there. I think this project is fantastic. When I was in construction, I had a small group of employees. One of those employees lived out in East Hampton. He was able to take advantage of the East Hampton affordable housing and is now captain of one of the fire companies out in East Hampton. And actually, when I retired from construction, he took over my business. So he's providing double. One person's providing double. So I applaud your efforts on this and strongly support it.
All right, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, so Charles, if you can hear me, next we're going to go to those viewers in Zoom. All right. All right, who is first?
I guess Michael Daly.
All right, if you can bring Michael Daly up. Michael will have to, I guess, unmute. And hello, I can see you, Michael.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
I can hear you too. Thanks for your
Okay,
patience.
yeah, good.
And
Well, thanks
welcome.
for having
You know,
us
you
for
are
this
you are our first virtual customer here, so welcome.
There we go. It's what a joy, and it's nice to be with you, even though it's virtual. I'm Michael Daly. I'm a resident of the Sag Harbor area, North Haven to be precise. I'm the founder of East End EMB, which is an organization of local people who are advocates for community housing. And we're over 200 members strong right now. We're also part of a group forming the Peconic Bay Community Housing Fund Coalition, which currently has about 30 organizations, including organizations such as the Southampton Business Alliance, the Children's Museum of the East End, civic organizations, businesses that are coming together to support this referendum in November. So we're way past what some of the detractors, were having to say about it today. People in our community recognize that community housing is at a crisis level. Southampton has seen, I think it's over a 20% population growth in the last 10 years, not even counting COVID times. East Hampton has seen nearly a 1/3% population growth, nearly a 30% population growth in the last 10 years. And we have simply not kept up with building homes. There were so many homes built for my generation, the baby boom generation after World War II, and our generation has not kept up in creating homes for our children and our grandchildren. So it's part of the reason why we're in in such a mess. But we are excited about the Community Housing Fund. We're very excited about the plan. And there has been a tremendous amount of public input, perhaps not enough, into this plan. I was part of it over 2 years ago with Diana Weir when we started this. And we were holding meetings at CACs, and then they went virtual meetings. Ms. McNamara can tell you I was at her CAC in East Quogue 2 years ago talking about community housing and what type of community housing the community needs. We recognize that every community needs their own form of housing for the people in their own community. And this is not about bringing new people into the area. This is really about servicing and providing stable housing for the people that live here and that work here. We're encouraged by reports showing that creating more housing in our communities on the East End will actually help reduce that trade parade traffic, okay? Because people will be here, they'll be living here. And for everyone we take off the road in eastern Southampton, everyone we provide housing for in eastern Southampton, that takes them off the road in western Southampton. So, you know, I am very encouraged. Obviously, we need to do more education town-wide through civic organizations, through CACs, through business organizations about this community housing fund and the referendum coming up, and about the plan this draft plan that has been released, because it is new and people need to see it, absorb it. And we all need to do that together. We need to take part in it together. On a personal level, I'll just tell you that, you know, I've been a housing advocate for 10 years, actively for 5, but it's just gotten personal for me, okay? Because somebody who I care about got kicked out of their place when it got sold and now lives in a van, okay? And I imagine that many of us out there know people who are living in insecure, they're either couch surfing, they're living in garages, the attics, basements right now. And this young man graduated from a well-known high school. He was a Southampton town lifeguard. He served our nation, okay, in the military. And then he comes back to a place where he can't even find a place to live. You know, it's hitting home now. And now I'm really serious about this, okay? So, and I think we all know somebody, whether they've even told us or not, that this has impacted them and impacted their lives. And, you know, we're committed to doing everything we can to supporting both the Community Housing Fund referendum and the Southampton Town Housing Plan. So thanks very much.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, Charles, who is next?
Ella is next.
Is that Ella Snow? We'll
Hey,
find.
can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ella. I cannot see you. All right.
Hi. Can you see me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for having this meeting and for figuring out the Zoom. I know people worked on that. It wasn't working in the beginning. My name is Ella Engel Snow. I'm a resident of Sagaponack. I work here. I grew up here. I am here at this meeting in support of amending Chapter 140 Community Preservation Fund in relation to creating a community housing fund and in support of adopting the housing plan as an updated element of the town's comprehensive plan. So the number 5 and 6 on the agenda. And then I'd just like to share that I work for a 6th-generation farm in Sagaponack down the road from me. Like many local businesses, we are short-staffed and struggling to find workers, in large part due to a lack of housing, and I think just a general lack of affordability. In the past, I previously worked at Whalebone Village Apartments in East Hampton. I was a tenant specialist there, and I dealt with both tenants and with the waiting list. And, you know, I just want to say that based on my experience with the waiting list and, you know, which at that time was like 15 to 20 years long, I believe. But that I believe that creating local community housing is absolutely a service for local people, and that would primarily serve people who are already living here, like Michael said, or in unsafe or overcrowded housing, as we know, or people that are from here and had to leave. And I think that's really, really important point. I feel like it's kind of a challenge to know what to say anymore because we're so far beyond the point of needing community housing and kind of far beyond the point of needing protections for local people and low-income people and moderate-income people. And I feel like anyone who doesn't already know that probably doesn't want to know that. Personally, I try to continue to show up and stay in conversation with my peers and my elders, and I hope that all of us, including myself, have the capacity to change and shift towards thinking in more of a community way. I am trying to keep faith in this beautiful place that I call home, and in my community, and to keep faith that we will choose to shift away from being a culture that prioritizes money over people, because that's often how it feels. And we've overdeveloped and destroyed so much of the beautiful land around us here. And in large part, it's been for people who don't even live here, for houses that remain empty. I am constantly seeing a house that is perfectly good and not deteriorating, and it gets knocked down for a new one to come, and nobody even owns it yet. It's a spec house. And I just feel like there's really no excuse for that and for our lack of community housing at this point. So, I was recently at a Sag Harbor meeting, and I'm really excited about about their legislation and the village, the housing, community housing and accessory dwelling legislation that is coming up there. I hope that we can look to them as an example. And I just want to end by saying that I'm really grateful to be here and to have your ear. I'm grateful that this legislation is being proposed. And I hope that we can find a way together to really think about what is at stake here for all of us and how our current housing crisis is negatively impacting all of our community. And I believe that community housing is sustainability. And it is actually that simple. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you.
All right, Charles, is there anyone else from Zoom that wishes to be heard on hearing 5 or 6?
I have Danielle. She wanted to speak before and I couldn't let her in, but I can now if you are willing.
Do you know, was Danielle or Daniel looking to speak at hearing 5 or 6? We'll find out. Go ahead.
Might have been the first one.
That's Daniel Gabay?
I'm not looking to speak. I'm here for one of the later items.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else, Charles? I'm not seeing anyone.
No one else.
All right, back to our audience. Is there anyone who has not spoken, who wishes to be heard at hearing 5 or 6? Is there one more card, Ray? You haven't spoken? No, you spoke. You ceded your time. There's no second round here, Ray. What is that? Is that on?
So I can, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'll just take it. Okay. All right, so we are going to be continuing this, so we're not going to close today. We are going to adjourn it to another day. Madam Clerk, what is the adjournment date? We said it earlier.
June 28th, 6 p.m. meeting is.
All right, so I will make and Ray, if you want an opportunity to speak at the next one, you can take it then. But today, just one round for each person. Okay, so I'm making a motion to adjourn to June 28th, is that?
Yes.
June
6
28th,
p.m.
6 p.m.
And is there a specific location at that date? I'd like to second it.
It's going to be here again.
Okay.
And we are going to have a hybrid meeting again. So if people are not able to come to town hall. They'll be able to participate through the internet. All right, so that was the second, Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the hearing, that hearing is adjourned. We now will move on to,
I'm sorry, you need to close them both individually.
Oh.
all right, so you took that as closing just 5?
Correct.
Okay, same motion on 6,
Adjourn, right?
seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, they're both now not closed, they're both adjourned. All right, we're going to then go to number 7, public hearing 7.
Public hearing number 7, enactment of Town Code, Chapter 90, entitled Smoking Prohibited in Designated Non-Smoking Areas.
All right, so Assistant Town Attorney Sean Cambridge will introduce this.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman and members of the Town Board. This is entitled Smoking Prohibited in Designated Non-Smoking Areas. And essentially, this code amendment is really a guideline how to smoke respectfully. We're not prohibiting a behavior. We're allowing a behavior. This is a balance of personal liberty versus public safety. And as you read through this proposed code section, you'll see that smoking's been prohibited in areas that you'd congregate in, recreation areas, common walkways at town beaches, playgrounds, athletic fields, sports facilities, bleachers, comfort stations at beaches. So this is really just smoking sensibly. We're not outright prohibiting any kind of behavior. It includes all smoking devices, tobacco, marijuana, vapes, cigars, anything you can really think of that you can smoke is included within this code section. It's not punitive. The penalty is a civil fine of $250 or up to 24 hours of community service. So we're being permissive while regulating potentially offensive behavior and balancing the needs of a smoker versus everybody else. Are there any questions?
Can I just add a little bit to that? So New York State, as the board is well aware, recently legalized the possession and use of cannabis substances, marijuana. It is perfectly legal for somebody to smoke a cannabis product anywhere where they could smoke a cigarette.
Correct.
And it made, I think it sort of brought this into focus in that some people may find it offensive, they may find the smell offensive. I personally find cigarette smoke offensive. So this bill really, since we can't just say marijuana smoking is prohibited in places, we have to group them together. All smoking is prohibited. So you were allowed to, before this law is enacted, currently, you could go to a town park and smoke a cigarette. You go hang out on the beach near where all the families are, by the lifeguards, smoke a cigarette. That's legal. And therefore, smoking marijuana would be legal as well if we don't do this. Now, the way this law was constructed was really to focus on our parks and places where families congregate. In some cases, we state the entire park, like Ponquag was a Good Ground Park, I'm sorry.
Right, they're usually
Ponquag-
parks where we have events.
Right, so Good Ground Park, Red Creek Park, what are some of the other, the North Sea.
Listed them out
North Sea
specifically.
Complex. Those, the entirety of the park, no smoking will be allowed whatsoever.
Right, the Tiana Bayside Recreational Facility, Iron Point Park, Wildwood Lake Park, Shinnecock Canal. So we've really focused on the areas where we have events that are open to the public. And this behavior, again, could be offensive in those settings.
And in common areas like.
Right, boardwalks, walkways,
boardwalks.
pavilions.
And also, we sort of left a catch-all in this too, where the Parks Department posts a sign that says no smoking. You are prohibited from where posting occurs.
500 feet.
500 feet. So
And that's just a way to spot, basically the areas where there's a deficiency here within a park facility where it's not appropriate for smoking.
So we won't have to come back and amend the law every single time we
Right.
identify an area where smoking really should not be allowed.
We had a work session on this just for the public, that we discussed this in some depth. The board's discussed this quite a lot, so this is not new to us, and I appreciate your work, Sean.
Thank you, Councilman.
And again, I'd like to reiterate for the public that this is not discriminatory against any smoking product or vaping product. It includes all of them.
Correct.
And
Right.
I do believe the entire board is co-sponsoring this.
Right, the whole board put this forward. There is a resolution to adopt for our next regularly scheduled town board meeting on 6/28 at 6 PM. I'd recommend we leave the written comment period open for 14 days. And this is common sense. This is good government.
So it does apply to vaping. It doesn't apply to nicotine or cannabis products that don't involve smoking. So if somebody has a nicotine gum or a nicotine patch or a marijuana gummy bear or whatever
Right,
it might
those are
be,
not included here.
that is not in the mix here. It's really smoke products, vaping products. Okay?
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, is there, I don't have any cards on this one. Yes, you may, Mr. D'Angelo? You couldn't resist.
You know how much I love you guys.
I'm well aware.
It's all about loving you.
Ray D'Angelo, Hampton Bays. First of all, I want to state that I wanted us to opt out of this marijuana thing. And I just want to say, I was down at the ocean at Ponquag Beach, and, there was some young people that, I don't want to, classify them as young people. There were some people using, okay? And I'm saying to myself, with this law, because I was watching you guys on CTV about this previously, how is this going to be enforced? Suppose I didn't object to it. I was with my dog, Cody, but suppose I was with my grandchildren and everything, and I was incensed by it. Am I supposed to come up to these people, or am I supposed to call the police? By the time the police come, what are you going to do? It's going to be over. I mean, it's an unenforceable, code. I don't understand what the intent of this is. It doesn't make absolutely no sense to me. It really does. I mean, we're going to have this now. Suppose you have somebody that's, by the middle school, walking down smoking, and then, there's kids coming out. What are you going to do then? I mean, that's another place that's supposed to be a no smoking zone. How are you going to enforce that? See, once you went down this road and are allowing this stuff, this is what you're going to be forced with. And I really think it was a mistake. We can't go back now, and what are you going to do? I mean, this is like an attempt on you ports to try to correct it, but I don't think you're going to be successful.
I'll ask Mr. Cambridge to speak on enforcement, but it's not the town that allowed recreational use of marijuana, it's New York State.
Yeah, but you could opt out of it.
It doesn't, no, you cannot opt out of the use. You can only opt out of the sale or consumption.
Okay, well, you could opt out of the sale or the consumption of it. You didn't. You chose not to.
If somebody buys it at a place where it's legal, they can consume it here in the town of Southampton. That is the state.
Well, by allowing it to be sold here, you're making it easier for it to be consumed here, aren't you? I mean, to some extent.
That is a
I'm not going to, I'm not going to split hairs with you,
That's a
but,
question. The state allows deliveries, the state allows.
well, we're going to see how it works out.
Yeah.
You
And the
first of all, there's a downside of this. First of all, police officers, when they stop people under the influence, it's much harder to tell them if they're under the influence of drugs. Where this has been legalized, there's been an increase in accidents and whatnot. I mean, it's not a free ride, and they haven't got the income that they expected because people that sell it illegally, they don't have all the taxes on it. So these municipalities never got as much money out of it that they thought.
Well, we don't know yet on that, but Ray, if you'll have a seat, we'll answer your question about enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Assistant Town Attorney Sean Cambridge. I also serve as the prosecutor for the town, so I do these enforcement cases in our Southampton Town Justice Court. And we do enforce these, and we enforce open alcohol and public urination and all sorts of quality of life crimes. Our police department, code enforcement, fire marshals, and bay constables are routinely on patrol of these areas. They all wear radios. If there's an issue, they are radioed over to where the issue is, and they can write a summons. From there, the person's issued a court date. They appear in the Southampton Town Justice Court, where I prosecute them personally, as well as Mr. Mick Redmond. And 9 out of 10 people will say, I had no idea I couldn't drink here, or a bathroom was closed, or they apologize in some way and usually pay an applicable fine. So this is no different. This is, like I said, not regulating sale or consumption. This is the act of smoking itself. The state did legalize recreational use. There's nothing we can really do about that. we can protect people in these common areas. I don't want to overreach and try to pass legislation that prohibits smoking everywhere. That's not conducive. That's not something we can enforce. Here, in these selected areas, we can enforce the same way we enforce every other town code provision, every other state fire provision, every other state building provision. Any other questions on that?
I have a question about compliance in general and laws in your opinion as a prosecutor for the town in your previous life. Would you say that most people are in compliance with laws as they're set out?
I would say most people. I've been a defense attorney, I've defended insurance companies, I've prosecuted, I've kind of been on all sides of the spectrum here.
And the design of law enforcement is not necessarily to make sure an individual is following the law at every moment. I mean, we by and large trust that people are going to drive the speed limit or, whatever the law is.
Right.
And,
We're looking for overall deterrence and compliance with the town code.
Okay.
So sure, 1 out of 10 people might smoke in one of these areas, and they might get a ticket and not really care that they had to pay $250. The majority of people are looking to follow our town code. The
so
majority
we put
of
up
people,
signs in the parks and we list all of our stuff.
like I alluded to
Most
earlier,
people are going to.
this could probably be called how to smoke respectfully. This is not a prohibition on a behavior. This is saying, okay, we acknowledge you're allowed to smoke. Please don't do it in these areas. So it's a little different. This is not an outright prohibition. This is a permissive piece of legislation, but we're safeguarding families. We're safeguarding people in parks and rec areas to the extent that we're allowed to. We're the town. We're not the state. So we're dealing with the cards dealt and in a responsible way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, thank you, Sean. Okay, anyone else wishes to be heard? I'll go. Charles, anyone online on this issue?
I see no hands.
All right, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, public hearing is closed. We move on to public hearing number 8, Sunday.
Public hearing number 8, to consider the acquisition of the property located at 240 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, New York.
All right, Kellyanne Doyle, our Assistant Town Attorney, will introduce us.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and members of the Town Board. This is a public hearing to consider the acquisition of improved property located at 240 West Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays. Tax map number is 900-255-1-9. This property could be appropriate and suitable for the operation of town facilities, including possibly offices for the trustees. The parcel contains approximately 1 acre of land and lies within the Highway Business Zoning District. The property is improved with a 2-story medical office building and a 1-story medical office building. We believe it was originally built in 1992. And I will step away to show you photos. This is a photo of the main office building from the front, 2 stories.
Kellyanne, I'm not
This is the
I'm
annex.
concerned that we're not going to be able to hear you on CTV.
Okay, so I'll tell you
So
what I
just
point.
say what you're going to point to and then go point to it.
Okay, so the top is the 2-story building, the bottom is the separate 1-story building.
Well done, Kelly.
The main building is comprised of 3,080 square feet of finished office space. There is 2,609 square feet on the first floor and 990 on the second floor, plus there is a full basement. And the annex building is comprised of 800 square feet plus a full basement. These buildings are currently vacant, but they were used for medical offices. And also, as you can see, I will point in 1 second to another aerial photo. The property has frontage on Montauk Highway, and the rear has frontage on the Long Island Railroad tracks. Montauk Highway, Long Island Railroad tracks. There are currently 28 parking spaces, and the surrounding zoning consists, for the most part, of commercial land along Montauk Highway, with some residential to the north and south. The purchase price would be $1,950,000. And if the board is so inclined to move forward, an authorizing resolution could be placed on the agenda for the next town board meeting on June 28th. And just to note, the sale would be subject to a permissive referendum pursuant to Town Law 64-2. Does the board have any questions?
Do you know maybe you said it, the square footage again of the two buildings?
The two buildings, let's see. The main building is 3,080 square feet, and the annex building is 800 square feet. And they both have full basements. That does not include the basements.
All right, so not so much of a question, but just some additional background. So as, traffic has become a bigger and bigger issue, as most people are aware. The bulk of our population lives west of the Shinnecock Canal, so we have looked to see if we can get some services that the public frequent closer to where the public is, a little bit more accessible. We have found that building new buildings for town facilities is cost prohibitive right now, and sometimes opportunities like this make a lot of sense for the board to consider. We are looking at the possibility that the town trustees would use this building as their principal offices, and the upstairs perhaps for housing and community development, and the back building for, I think, Bay Constables is what is being considered. So it would not only help the public, but also helps those employees that primarily live west of the Shinnecock Canal as well. And the Bay Constables, as you know, service the entire community, but it makes them a little bit more accessible in many ways. So that is sort of the thinking here. And for, I think, the town trustees that are largely independent, to have offices outside of Town Hall could be a good thing. We're also, it would then free up the space here in Town Hall that they currently occupy, which is sorely needed by planning, by the building department. So it would help consolidate them, who right now they're sort of spread out into different sections of this building. It could bring them all into a closer working proximity. So that's really what's behind it, and we have praised the property. We went through a negotiating process. It's a fair market price, and it's really up to the board after hearing from the public whether it wants to move forward with this. Okay, any questions for Kellyanne? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cal.
Can I add one thing in terms of where the funding source is? Because normally we talk about CPF acquisitions. This is not a CPF acquisition. This will be not bonded. It is not intended to be bonded with debt incurred and us having to collect additional property taxes. Half the money would be coming from money received from the federal government for part of the American Rescue Plan. So we were given $5 million, so approximately $1 million would come from that fund. And the other $1 million, our mortgage tax revenues are significantly higher, so we would basically be adjusting the receipts on the mortgage tax to more accurately reflect what has come in already this year. So those would be the two sources that would fund this. We also, if the trustees are to occupy this building, as has been discussed, the town board has moved toward creating a tax line on the property tax bill that more accurately reflects the cost of the trustees. That line would then be used to help to reimburse the town. They would be actually paying rent for this building. So the town would have that as a revenue source, a fair market rent paid by the trustees using the funds that they're currently collecting. All right? All right, any questions? Okay, to the public, is anyone who wishes to be heard? Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Lombardi had filled out a card on this one. Gail?
So yes, the Town of Southampton Real Estate Company. This building, I disagree with Kelly. I believe the building, unless it was knocked down and rebuilt, was actually put up in 1958. There's a CO on the Town of Southampton GIS system for a residential property from 1958. So I think 1992 was the year the GIS system updated, and a lot of public records show 1992, but none of the houses were really built in 1992. But Kelly, correct me if it got knocked down or rebuilt. That house is the house with the big expansive front porch. You have a track record of not being able to maintain property. You knock down the chamber building, you're knocking down the Girl Scout building, you're knocking down, I think, another building. Look at the Bel Air, our favorite topic. 4 years in the making, and you still haven't done anything with that property. You argued, well, we have to buy that property because we want it on the tax rolls. And what you've done for 4 years is keep it off the tax rolls. Now you want to take another property, paying $24,000 a year in taxes, and take it off the tax rolls. For who? For what? I understand your explanation, but your trustee line, where's that money coming from? It's just, you're doing a shell game of money. You're putting out money. The end result is this pot goes to this pot, but this pot goes out the door. So I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA. The shell game doesn't work for me. So the trustees have full-time jobs. They're not full-time employees. They don't need 5,000 square foot of space. Why are you looking like the whole, and I'm coming back in open session, it's like a cornucopia that you've turned your focus on development. There's so many issues in this town, and yet this board is like co-developers. I don't know if it's because they contribute to your campaigns. I don't know if they open doors for you. I have no idea why this board's focus has completely turned to helping developers overdevelop our community. There is no reason for the town to own this property. There should be space here. There should be space in the $7 million that you paid for the parcel in King Cullen that you're approving the subdivision today. There should be space in the community preservation building. I think the Bay Constable has a house in Hampton Bays, I think up on Red Creek. So it's ridiculous. I don't understand why you guys are doing this. This whole agenda today is like, well, you might as well be a development company. So no, I'm opposed to you guys buying that and taking $24,000 off the tax rolls. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lombardi. Kellyanne, did you want to, I guess, address the issue of the residential
Yes, Mr.
that
Supervisor.
might have once existed here on this commercially zoned property?
I just wanted to correct something for the record. The year 1992, that came from the appraisal report. There is a certificate of occupancy for a medical office building with a porch. That's the main building. It says work completed July 1991. That's just from our records. And then there is another certificate of compliance to move an existing house to a new location and renovate it to a medical office. So the annex building was an existing house that was moved to a different location and then converted. And according to the certificate of compliance, the work was completed in 1993. So that's just to clarify where the years came from.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to be heard on this public hearing about the possible acquisition of the building at 240 West Montauk Highway in East Quogue, Hampton Bays area? Okay, Charles, on Zoom, do we have anybody who wishes to be heard?
I see no hands.
Okay, I will make a motion to close.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we now move on to public hearing number 9.
Public hearing number 9, to accept a grant of open space in connection with the subdivision known as the Woods at Hampton Bays.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Board. For your consideration is the acceptance of 4 open space parcels totaling approximately 5.8 acres of a 16.54 acre site in connection with the cluster subdivision plan for the Woods at Hampton Bays, and that would be this subdivision right here. And
Christine, could you?
Sure.
Could you just lift the mic up just a little bit? Thank you.
Good?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 4 parcels. I've done them in pink, so you can see 1, 2, 3, and then 4 off in the corner. The map is located in the R20 zoning district, in an aquifer protection overlay district, in the compatible growth area in the hamlet of Hampton Bays, and is further identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 900-200.5.3 12.1. The final application consists of a 20-lot cluster plan, inclusive of 2 affordable housing lots with sizing approximately 19,331 square feet. The reduced density proposal as the site could have yielded 26 lots originally. Additionally, since this is currently vacant land, there is a requirement for park development. However, as there was no recommendation consistent with that in the 1999 comprehensive plan, and the fact that the Red Creek Park is just north of the site, this is also an aerial over here. I don't know if you can all see it, but this is the site. Red Creek Park is right across the street. So the applicant agreed to dedicate, and the town has already accepted a 4,000 square foot park area to the town to allow pedestrian traffic to go over. That's this, which the town has already taken in, over Old Riverhead Road to get to Red Creek Park. And that's it. If the board is so inclined, you can listen, and I have recommended closing the public hearing, and there's a resolution of adoption on. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And Jackie Fenlon from Planning is also here, because I had originally asked, I looked at the composition and was asking her how we came up with that. And because of its proximity to 27 and the cloverleaf of all the ramps and stuff, it was trying to move the development further west, and then also, though, retain that wooded area scenic along Old Riverhead Road, so it was consistent with what was already there.
All right, thank you, Deputy Town Attorney Scalera. All right, any questions for Christine? All right, is there anyone who wishes to be heard on the acceptance of this open space as part of this subdivision? All right, Charles, anyone in Zoom land?
No hands.
Okay, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will move on to public hearing number 11. Sunday?
Public hearing number 10, to accept...
Oh, sorry, 10,
That's
sorry.
okay. A TDR deed of residual fee from Spinney Road LLC for property to be maintained as open space located at 57 Spinney Road, East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-250-3-15.1, pursuant to Southampton Town Code 244-4, obtaining a development rights certificate, and 247 General Municipal Law of the State of New York.
All right, thank you, Sunday. Dave Wilcox, our planning director, will introduce this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor and members of the town board. As our clerk, Sunday Schermeyer, mentioned, this hearing is to consider the acceptance of a deed of dedication for a property at East Quogue. I believe I handed out a small handout. Did you all get that? It's these two papers here. The property has a tax map number of 900-250-315. Too close.
I should have closed.
Thank you. The man behind the curtain.
Thank you, Charles.
On that handout, you'll notice if you look at the aerial photograph side first, you'll notice the property is outlined in red. It is owned by Spinney Road LLC, and it is 25,412 square feet, which is 0.58 acres. It is located in the CR 200 zoning district, and as I said, at East Quogue. The property is being offered to the town of Southampton as open space in connection with the issuance of a development right credit. The property has a development right allocation of 0.12706 development rights. That comes from simply the square footage of the property divided by the zoning district. Property is also located in the following critical environmental areas, which is necessary in order to allow the town to issue development right certificates. It has to have some environmental quality to the property. This property is located in the Central Pine Barrens Compatible Growth Area, the Old File Map Overlay District, the town's Aquifer Protection Overlay District, which is also a town-designated critical environmental area, and also in the County Special Groundwater Protection Critical Environmental Area. If you flip over to the other side, you can see that the other publicly owned properties in the general area, most of those are municipal open space properties. The pink property obviously is the county airport and is not necessarily open space. You'll notice that there really is no other open space abutting this property. This is kind of in the middle of the Discovery Land subdivision. It's kind of an out parcel within their property that was separately owned, and the owner of this property is asking to deed it to the town as open space and secure the development rights certificate.
So questions, Dave? I have one. So the town will own this piece of land if we accept it, so it won't have any development rights. The owner is taking whatever partial rights exist on this. But then we're going to sort of own a piece of ground in the middle of a golf course housing subdivision,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
As parkland or?
Not as parkland, just as open space.
Do we have access to it if we want to go?
It's on Spinney Road, so there is public access from Spinney Road.
So, assuming this development occurs, if our park rangers or whatever it might be want to go and inspect this property or do invasive species removal, there won't be any issue getting to it?
Well, Spinney Road is a public road, so I don't anticipate that there would be any problems.
Okay, so it literally is along Spinney Road?
Yes.
Okay.
And this portion of Spinney Road is open and passable.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, David.
Yep.
All right, is there anyone who wishes to be heard at this public hearing?
Hi, my name's Daniel Genovese. I'm the manager of Spinney Road LLC.
Oh, okay. You have 3 minutes, sir?
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure the town did actually preserve it as open space, because it is between literally the first and the 18th holes, or right in the middle of the new planned subdivision. So I did want to make sure that the town, prevented the developer from using it as a tee-off ground or something ancillary to the golf course.
Right, so you're giving it to us for open space purposes?
Correct.
Right, so once the development right is taken away, it's undevelopable land, right, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Yeah, it could not be used in conjunction with the golf course. It would basically be in park preserve type of status, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a
Yeah,
conservation easement placed on it, and,
Great.
Yeah, I think that answers your question, right, sir?
Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
right. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Madam Clerk, the last public hearing notice, number 11.
Okay. Public hearing number 11, to consider a change in a non-conforming use pursuant to Southampton Town Code 330-185.1.
Okay, who is, I guess, Deputy Town Attorney Kathleen Murray will introduce this.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good afternoon, members of the Town Board. As you may know, on April 13th, 2021, by local law number 13 of 2021, the Town Board authorized a Town Code amendment removing the provision addressing a change from one nonconforming use to another nonconforming use from the ZBA's purview, and instead placed said applications before this board for your review and consideration. Pursuant to that change, the Town Board received an application for a change in a nonconforming use under this new provision, that is Town Code 330-185.1, for a parcel located at 2036 County Road 39 in the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills. And I do have an aerial I'll pass out to the board members. That building currently contains 2 separate office spaces. Here, the applicant has requested a change from 2 offices limited to the following: Security and Commodity Brokers Exchange and Services, Insurance Office, other investment offices, legal services, engineering, architectural and surveying services, and accounting, auditing, and bookkeeping services, to one office, allowing the operation of Dan's Papers, which encompasses the compatible office uses of bookkeeping, accounting, advertising, writing, editing administrative staff, sales, and other similar office job tasks categorized as other services in your business district table of use regulations. At this time, if the board is so inclined, I would invite the applicant's attorney, Harry Fornaris, to speak in further detail to the request. But I would just remind you that at the end of the hearing, and pursuant to this somewhat recent Town Code amendment, if you are so inclined to grant this change, the following findings would have to be made. 1, that the use has been certified by the Chief Building Inspector as a legally pre-existing non-conforming use that has not been abandoned. 2, the proposed use must be A, identified on one of the Town Code's Table of Use regulations, B, more conforming than the current use in terms of community impacts and environmental impacts, C, more in line with the goals of the town's comprehensive plan, and 3, the use, scale, and density are consistent with what could be achieved through a related change of zone application. So at this time, I'll ask...
I'm going to jump in
sorry.
here.
Sure.
So, first, I just want to make sure the board, everybody knows the location of this property. So if you're on Route 27, heading to County Road 39 at the merge across from Manna Fish Farm, the Lobster Inn, the very first property that you get to, the very first driveway, which for a while was Briscoe Protective, it was a alarm company, is the building that Dan's Papers has recently acquired. Now, for some largely unknown reason, these three, if you go between County Road 39 and Hill Station Road, there are 3 properties there. You can look at the aerial. So the first one was where Briscoe is, the first driveway. Those 2 buildings, that's the Bentley Hotel. So that's a commercial use that's accessed from Hill Station Road. And then there's a gas station on the corner of Hill Station Road. So in that area, up against the open space, are 3 commercial uses. But that area is actually zoned residential. I don't know why. To me, it's completely inappropriate. I can't imagine somebody having a house in this location. But because it's zoned residential, Briscoe Protective was actually a non-conforming use because it was a commercial use in a residential zone. They came under the provision to go from one non-conforming use to another. So they went to the zoning board and they were given permission to become 2 office spaces, rather than the one Briscoe Protective, which was a alarm company. They were 2, like you could be, the zoning board gave a whole list. It's accounting services, bookkeeping services, insurance, things like that. We recently, this town board changed the law, and we said, from here on in, rather than going to the zoning board to go from one non-conforming use to another, you come to this board. And we put a whole bunch of criteria on, and we said, well, it has to be a better we have to make a finding that it's better than the current non-conforming use. It has to be a use that's contemplated in the code, right? So we put a couple things in place. And this is really the first time we are seeing this. And Dan's Papers is looking to put in a very similar use. It's mostly bookkeeping and accounting type of services. They're willing to give up the second office to do so, to make it more conforming, to go from 2 to 1. And I think down the road, I am going to advocate that these 3 properties be zoned to highway business. It's crazy to not have a commercial use here. I can't imagine a homeowner having a house in this location, right, where that merge point is. But for now, so that Dan's Paper can operate, I understand that doing this is better than waiting for how long it may take to do a zone change. So that's really, if anybody has any questions about how this came to be, why this is in front of us, if not, I will invite the attorney for Dan's Papers. Okay. Schnepp's Media. Okay. And please identify yourself.
Good afternoon. My name's Harry Fornaris from Greenberg Traurig LLP at 2317 Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton. On behalf of the owner is now 6071 Woodbine LLC, similar owner, the exact owner as Dance Papers. So the application has been summarized pretty well already, so I'm here more or less just to answer any questions about what will be there, and just confirm that it's essentially going to be a less intensive use in the building than what's already permitted under the variance that was issued back in 2016 by the zoning board. So.
And the planning board, this went through town planning board, they added some additional concerns, which I hope that you're able to live with. One is that it could not be used as a distribution site for the newspaper.
Correct, and I reviewed that with the owner of Dan's, and that's completely fine. The distribution is completely separate from the offices that are going to be located.
Secondly, the Dan's Papers, which is sometimes known for special events, at this site would not be used for special events, or, it would be limited anyway. So if they're having an opening for their new office, that kind of thing, but it wouldn't be a special event site per se.
Correct.
Okay, and then the third thing is that the signage, the planning board asked that the signage be in keeping with the sort of the current signage. It's not going to be a big,
Correct, and we have a
billboard there or anything.
Correct, and the permit has not been submitted yet, but the overall plan, and the name of the sign company escapes me, but the plan is to take the sign that's there right now and essentially put Dan's logo into that same existing, I think it's an oval on the road there.
Right.
So that application will be going in relatively soon, but that has been considered. And
That'll go to ARB, but I put those three specific recommendations into the approval resolution, should the town board wish to consider it.
Yep, and the owner is okay with all three of those.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well,
Pretty
I'm
straightforward.
just a little surprised by this, because I wasn't aware of it, so I think we need to have some discussion on this. But you haven't gone to application yet for the planning board, correct? You've gone to pre-app with them, I imagine?
Well, no,
I
because.
don't know where you are on this.
So the procedure it's a different procedure than any other type of land use application at this point. So what we're doing here is, this building was, as the supervisor explained, the use was strange. It was a residential zoned lot that, when the building was approved about 20 years ago.
No, I understand
Okay.
that, but you need to go through a planning process at some point for this, no?
So
I'm
Yeah.
a little confused.
No, this
here
is
as to what
new, and
you're
I understand
doing.
that. So the building currently can be used by two different tenants. It can be, and they could be accounting, bookkeeping, insurance, legal services. But the zoning board decision doesn't specifically say that it could be offices for a media company, and that's basically the problem. So this would allow the media company to go there, but they would lose the two uses. And the media company use is quite compatible with what the zoning board approved. It just wasn't listed.
Right.
So it's a use table error, or?
No, Councilman Bouvier. So this is the first time you've seen an application like this since you've amended the town code back in, I believe it was 2021. Normally, this application would have gone to the zoning board, as the supervisor indicated. The new process is that it comes to you. So on May 24th, when you set that notice.
But I'm sorry, Kathleen, it's coming to us in a public session.
As it should.
Public hearing.
Yes.
Why wasn't this brought to us as a work session item at some point so we could get up to speed on it?
We did discuss this.
Did we? I don't
think we
recall.
did, but there is a time is of the essence issue here with the escrow and the
Okay.
property, so.
I mean, if there's an urgency, I understand that, but I need to get a little bit more informed.
Sure, I apologize. So the notice of hearing was on the May 24th meeting. Your planning board did consider this at its meeting on May 26th. There's a referral. The Suffolk County Planning Commission has deemed this a matter for local determination. We can certainly leave it open if you'd like us to look into anything further for you and
Yeah.
answer any questions.
I mean, part of it's
if
my
there's an
my
urgency
fault,
here.
but I felt this was largely ministerial because it's basically the same use in the building. Instead of two offices, you'll have one, I think indistinguishable from what the zoning board had approved, so I thought it was a positive thing, and and moved it forward, but,
Well, I'll certainly defer to council.
There's no physical change to the
No.
building? Of-
No, it's really because the 2016 zoning board decision was so very specific, which I think is a good thing. But with that specificity comes a process in changing that, and really you're going from one set of office uses to another set of office uses.
All right.
I'm not quite sure why the zoning board was so specific when they did the first
another
non-conforming use.
Because, well, if I may, I would suggest that is because this is a non-conforming use, and you want to be very careful with what you allow to be permitted as a non-conforming use. And so I applaud the specificity of the zoning board in determining that 6 specific office uses could be used. And normally, prior to this amendment, it would have gone back to the zoning board to reconsider these different office uses. But now you've placed that before you.
Right,
to
and
make
so we
the-
have the list of things that you asked us to consider,
Yeah,
right?
and they are in your business district table of use regulations for office
All right.
spaces.
Okay, I think I got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So it's more narrow than a typical highway business property, which could be a, whatever, a liquor store, which might be a high-traffic generating use.
Right.
So they're basically saying, we're going to allow commercial uses, but low-traffic generating.
Correct, exactly.
So who's helping us guide these items that you had listed for us? Obviously, the building inspector certification, all that kind of stuff. You're going to assure us of all that?
Well, that's your determination to be made. There's a resolution on the agenda later today for your consideration. We could amend that resolution. It does find that it's more compatible in that it's going from 2 offices to 1 office, and that the uses are similar to that which is already there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, being this is the first time we've gone through this, I just
Yes.
think we should
Yes.
be.
I understand.
Thank you.
So because the uses are similar, we're supposed to assume that the parking requirements are similar, that the flow is the same?
Yes, and Janice Sher is here if you'd like her to speak to the parking requirements, but they're similar.
It's up to you. Rick, do you want?
Well, I have a question for
You
the
could come up for the record.
other counselor.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Board. Janice Sher, Town Planning and Development Administrator. We did review this at the Planning Board. I was the one that did the referral. The office is the same parking calculation, so there was no change. It's just, as Supervisor was mentioning, that it's just a very specific office use in that original ZBA decision, and now this broadens it to allow for the newspaper publication office type of office. But in the end, office is office in parking calculations. But as the planning board said, no distribution because of the way that, it's right off the Sunrise. It's in a tricky spot there, so we wouldn't want truck traffic. So that was their one real concern when it was related to circulation and parking.
And the fact that it goes from 2 tenants to 1 tenant potentially makes it a little less intensive.
Well, I don't know, because I just assumed Dan's Papers offices are a lot busier than Briscoe was.
Yeah, you don't print on site, right? Or do you?
I don't know.
Well, that's a question for the applicant.
I'm confused because I thought that it was in addition to an office as by the ZBA use, so that it is in the N2 offices?
They
but I
wanted
could
2
be
offices,
confused.
but one of the findings we need to make is that it's more conforming and more in
Oh, I
line.
see. So
So
you're
it-
having them give up one of the, or they are requesting to give up to have?
They agreed to give up 1.
Oh, that's even better.
Today.
So, good. Very good. So I'm here if you have any other questions, but just as far as special events or distribution facility or any other additional truck traffic and the way that the site is designed, they are forced to, you couldn't make a left from there. You have to make a right and probably go around Inlet Road to get back to go
Yeah,
west,
you-
honestly.
yeah.
So, it's really not conducive to any kind of truck traffic. So we just want to make sure of that. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janice.
Counselor, would you explain, as the attorney for the applicant, how this application is less intensive than the existing non-conforming use? I believe I heard it here today, but I think
Sure.
it needs to come
So-
from you for the public record.
Yeah, of course. Currently right now, the owner can rent it out to 2 separate businesses under those 6 different permitted uses, whether it's attorneys, whether it's a commodity broker, insurance office, an investment office, engineer, architect, surveyor, or an accountant. So again, we're in hypotheticals right now on how intense those different uses can be, but there are two separate businesses that can go in there as of right now, if a lease was signed. The proposal and what our application is requesting is that it's essentially, it's going to be one business now. Dan's Papers is obviously a business that's well-known in the area, but the use will be less intensive because it's going to be just the one office. It's going to be, the office is essentially, it's not quite hybrid. There's no official policy yet, but I did review this with the applicant, and a lot of the work has gone hybrid, but they do need their office space that they had down the road. So that's the idea here, is to have just the one tenant there, one group of employees in and out. I don't have numbers, but there were no numbers in the prior variance that allowed the two different uses. So
Is it your client's intention to keep it the same intensity as it was when it was located on Main Street, Bridgehampton?
as far as office staff, yes. And then we're agreeing, of course, to the conditions that it's going to be limited special events, and of course, no distribution out of that. And there was no distribution previously, so that is the plan.
And you mentioned the sign earlier. Does that conform to our code? You're not seeking any variances on signage or?
Correct. The plan is an as-of-right sign that essentially matches, or it will match the size of the sign that is currently hanging, on the street. It's not on the street, but on the property there off of the street.
All right,
So,
thank
and
you.
we have a plan pending with the sign company to prepare a new sign, so.
Could you start that again, please?
I'm sorry, we have the sign company is preparing a markup of the new sign, so, and they have the the current dimensions of that oval sign that's there right now, and they're essentially fitting the Dan's logo into what's there, and then we're making a permit application when that time comes, so, or when that is completed.
But you're not seeking a variance? huh?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Board.
Thanks.
All right. Is there anyone else? Well, I guess I haven't asked anybody yet. So is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this, what are we calling it? It's not a zone change, this is a change from one non-conforming use to another under section 330-185-1
It's a type of variance, right, Counselor?
It's not a variance.
No? Okay, it's just a change in
Not
non-conformity.
really.
It's just,
We need
It's kind of
real
under
name
the
for it.
variance sections, but it's not a variance per se.
okay. Is there anyone on Zoom, Charles, who wants to be heard? All right, I'll make a motion to close.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is the last of our public hearings. We're going to go to public portion. I appreciate everybody's patience. Some people have been waiting quite some time, as it's 3:45 now, and we started at 1. So the first speaker in public portion is Dave Dayton. Dave, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments known. I know. We have the number. We already walked it out.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, though.
Thank you.
Yes, I saw it already. Kathleen was working on it.
Hello, I'm Day Dayton, President of Friends of the Long Pond Greenbelt. Thank you for allowing me to address the board today. Friends of the Long Pond Greenbelt is a volunteer nonprofit group with 400 members dedicated to the preservation, stewardship, and public appreciation of the Long Pond Greenbelt, which stretches from Otter Pond and Ligony Creek in Sag Harbor to Sag Pond and Sagaponack, and includes 13 coastal plain ponds. I'm here today to ask for your help. As you know, PSEG is proposing to install a 69 kV transmission cable known as the Bridgehampton to Buell, using horizontal directional drilling through the heart of the Long Pond Greenbelt. The Long Pond Greenbelt is a protected coastal plain pond ecosystem that supports one of the highest concentrations of rare plants and animals in New York State, including the New York State endangered eastern tiger salamander, northern cricket frog, northern long-eared bat, small white snake root, creeping St. John's wort. I'm not going to go on, just that's a few. And I can't breathe. This land was also home to Native American settlements, and the PSEG DEIS draft environmental impact statement has not addressed this. Southampton Town, Suffolk County, and the Nature Conservancy has spent more than 50 years and millions of dollars preserving this irreplaceable nature preserve. In 1969, Southampton declared in its master plan that preservation of the Long Pond Greenbelt was a significant goal. And today, the Long Pond Greenbelt is designated by your CPF department as a critical area. I ask you today to protect this unique nature preserve, including the 2 vernal DEC-protected salamander breeding ponds located directly in the path of the drill. We have concerns about drilling through the old Sag Harbor dump site. We know from the Great East End cleanup, in 2 hours we cleared out 8 dump trucks loads. From that dump site, just the surface. We don't know what's underneath there. And also the possibility of leakage of harmful drilling slurry into the water system of the coastal plain ponds and our aquifer. Also, after the installation, how can the cable be maintained without damage to this fragile area? Why take this unnecessary risk when there is an alternative underground route south along the Bridgehampton-Sag Harbor Turnpike and east on Montauk Highway? The Suffolk County Legislature has passed a Resolution 1334 and is requiring PSEG to come before the full legislature. We, Friends of the Long Pond Greenbelt, are also asking the town to take action to deny the underground rights needed for this project and to recommend the alternative route. We feel that's the only way to protect the Greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, next is Gail Lombardi.
I drove my butt down here and get my money's worth. So I'm here to talk about the HBDOD and the resolution that you have on the town board to rehire Nelson Pope and Vorez for another $200,000 to correct the mistakes that they potentially were responsible for. I started with you guys 6 years ago when the two of you were in my house with Julie Ofsted for the campaign. And I came to this board thinking and hoping that they made intelligent, informed decisions based on the facts, the truth, the law, and took everybody's opinions into consideration and didn't listen to anecdotal conversations about somebody living in their car or somebody saying they represent somebody. I even said, who does the civic represent? These people come here. Let's really have a community activity. You wanted to make sure that people trust government, but I don't see exactly that happening. So here we are 6 years later, and this was the HBDOD started 6 years ago, almost to the day. I think it was March 2016 you had the work session. So here you are giving a firm $200,000 that potentially messed up the secret to begin with. Not only shouldn't you be paying them $200,000, they should be reimbursing you for the legal expenses that you're incurring because you're taking this to appeal. It's public information that you now appealed it, so I'm not speaking out of term. You filed a motion to correct the appeal a couple of weeks ago, and saying that you want 30 days to perfect the appeal because it's past due. You know, you haven't filed your briefs. So you're running the attorney's fees up and up and up at taxpayer expenses to take an appeal, but at the same time, you are curing the errors? Well, it's not your money, right? It's taxpayer money, so it doesn't matter. Instead of filing a motion to withdraw the appeal, you decided to file a motion to correct the egregious errors that your attorneys made on the notice of appeal. In that, they represented to the appellate court that this would be a hardship to the town board if they didn't have their day in court, because, you know, this might cost them money and this would cost them time. So you provided one thing to the appellate court, and today you're approving a resolution to move forward on the secret review. I corrected the appellate court record in my response, telling them that the town board intends on making these changes because it was already in the CAC minutes. So more likely than not, your motion is going to get approved because the courts really do want to hear the appeals, and the courts really side with town boards. So now you're running up all these legal fees at the same time paying the firm that potentially messed up to begin with $200,000 on a plan that is no longer relevant, on a plan that is now going to be mostly housing. You know, we have a recession, we have the Amazon effect, it's a handful of property owners that are looking to capitalize and make money on the increased density, on the increased apartments. And this is where I say town boards should not have the discretion, but they do. They do. They have discretion. I learned a lot in this court process. I'm a lot smarter than I was 2 years ago. It's amazing the discretion they have, and it's amazing how the courts don't want to step in your shoes. But I'm a lot smarter, and there are people looking at this process that are a lot smarter and a lot more knowledgeable than I am. And a very smart litigator said to Supervisor Schneiderman and Mr. Burke at a meeting that you only really sue when you have no resort. You feel like somebody's got their foot on your throat. And with the way the HPDOD has been handled for the past 6 years, that's how I feel. You literally had your foot on my throat. No matter what we said, you did what you wanted to do. So that's why people, I guess, like Mike and wonderful people in our community have much more trust in you all. And God bless them. I appreciate what they say and what they do. I have, based on my experience with this board over the past 6 years, limited trust that the decisions made are for the greater community based on what people really want. And here we are, $200,000. I was flabbergasted. So good luck with that. And I'll be watching, and so will a lot of other people. So, and hopefully you'll file a motion to withdraw the appeal. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lombardi. All right, Vincent Mangano. Coach Mangano. You are. The last speaker. There might be more, though. That's the last card I have, though.
You saved the best for last.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your patience.
You know, I really have to thank you. You guys know what I went through 2 years ago with my cardiac arrest, and your support was tremendous. Brings tears to my eyes that, you know, you guys supported pickleball. It's come so far. And I just wanted to give you a quick update. The courts at Southampton SYS have been resurfaced, and they're spectacular. We finally got it right. People are playing and enjoying themselves. On a personal note, I just wanted to thank Supervisor Schneiderman because, you know, he plays a little pickleball.
They've heard.
You may have heard that.
We have.
But I also wanted to really take a minute to thank Kristen Doulos, and that's why I sat here for 2 hours. She's a charm. She's a delight. You know, every time I ask her for something, she says, you know, that's a good idea. So we're going to have an AED at those courts now. She said, you know, I never thought of it because there's ball fields there, and there's a soccer field, and there's a skate park. So she's pricing out AEDs. You might get a bill for that. I don't know. But I think it's going to be worthwhile getting that bill. She ordered storage. I said, hey, we need storage boxes to put the balls. Next day I hear we got them, you know. So she's awesome. She's easy to work with. Hampton West, she's going to do 2 more courts there. So the west part of Southampton is going to have pickleball courts. Say Hampton Bays High School. I know some people that maybe even live in Hampton Bays. The new athletic director there, John Foster, he has badminton courts that hadn't been used for 8 years. He's lining them, and they're going to be able to play pickleball at Hampton Bays High School as well. I don't know whether this is appropriate or not, but I know that at Moses Park we've been talking about maybe putting some pickleball courts there, and there's some blowback that, hey, pickleball, you can hear a pickleball hit a paddle. It's part of the game, but there's plenty of room towards the railroad tracks, and I think that the community in the village doesn't really have any facility to play pickleball. It would be a great opportunity for those people to have another 4 courts there. So I'm asking you to at least whatever pull you have with the village, that might be something that you guys might want to consider. And don't let them tell you that it's too noisy and that the residents are going to hear it. You know, In Florida, where I live, we have condos right next to the pickleball courts. So we restrict it. You can't play between 8 at night and 8 in the morning, or make it 9 and 9, whatever is a compromise that you could do. But once again, I stayed here a long time. Thank you so much.
I just, first of all, thank you for coming. Thank you for your patience. Vinny's sort of like the ambassador for pickleball. He actually has that title.
I actually am the ambassador.
And for the board, you know, I'm sure they're all getting familiar with the sport a little bit, but it is apparently the fastest growing sport in America. A lot of seniors play, but young people play it too. If you go to the new courts at SYS, sometimes now there's already a wait for people trying to get on. It's very, you know, nobody's at the bocce courts, nobody's, you know, in some of the other recreational facilities, but the pickleball, and if you're 20 feet away from where they're playing, you don't hear it. You don't hear it. Yes, there's a sound if you're right there, but it's a little plastic ball and a little racket doesn't make much sound. It's like ping pong. Yeah, ping pong, you can hear ping pong if you're right next to the ping pong table. But I think the loudest sound is people when they make the point.
When they make a good point. But it is, as Jay was saying, it is the fastest growing sport, and I went through a lot to be an ambassador. So if anybody wants a free lesson, you've got my email and my number, and I'll meet you on the courts, and you'll get a free lesson.
It's very social, and it's
Might take you up on that.
decent
Please do.
exercise. You know, a lot of people migrate from tennis to pickleball because it's just easier on their knees and whatever, but.
And I think the
we
last
have,
thing I wanted to say, Jay, sorry to interrupt, was that it's probably the only sport where a 15-year-old kid, a 25-year-old kid can play with Howard Reisman, who's 85,
Right, exactly.
and have fun. You know, it's social. It's
And
really
Howard
social.
is damn good
And he's damn
pickleball
good. I
player.
mean, and he's 85 years old. So once again, thanks again. And if you want any lessons, just tell Jay he has my email.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you, Vinny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Ray, you wanted to speak to?
Yeah, I do want to mention too, that Councilman Bouvier and I are liaisons to Parks and Rec. We've met with Kristen. As soon as the life is over on the tennis courts, it's time to resurface at Red Creek Park. We are changing some of those tennis courts over to permanent pickleball courts.
Court, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have some out west too, which is,
I had lunch at the senior center today, and I told them I was coming here, and they asked me, and I said, do you want me during the open period, if you wanted me to ask the board anything? And first of all, I have to get in a plug for the senior center, and thank you all. It's a wonderful program, really. I want to thank every one of you. I mean, it's just really, the people that work there are wonderful. You know, a lot of the seniors are very dependent on it, you know, for a nutritious meal and to socialize, and loneliness is a big problem as you age. And we have some people there that are very old, and it's their whole life. They come there, they can play bingo, especially the women. The men don't do so well. We don't live so long. But it's really a wonderful program. But here's the things that they were concerned about. One of them mentioned to me they would want an update on the Bel Air Cove Motel. They know it's been almost 4 years and why it's still there. You know, the commercial sign is still there. They haven't even been able, you guys haven't taken the commercial sign down. They're concerned that someone's going to break into there, some kid's going to get into the facility and get hurt in there. They feel if you can't go what you wanted to do originally, you should tear it down and make a park out of it. And so that's number one. Number two was the taxes. A lot of people, especially if you're on a fixed income and you retired when you were 65, and now people are living longer. You're 85, 86 with this current exponential inflation rate. Fuel oil is almost over $6. Gas is over $5. People, a lot of seniors, that's what I was trying to get at before, that, affordable housing also means keeping people in houses that live here already in their houses, and that they're really hurting. So I was wondering, again, we discussed this, there's other programs in other states where you get like a certain age, 70, and you don't have any minor children in the school district. You get you don't pay a full school tax. You get a break. And I think the town should consider that. You know, if you're 70, 65, or whatever that age, you know, and you don't have any minor children in the school district, maybe you don't pay like the full freight. Maybe you pay 50% of it. That would help these people out. And the last thing which I
Your Board of
touched on.
Education can do that.
Excuse me?
Your Board of Education can do that with a vote of the Board of Education.
Okay,
There's a
I'll-
New York
I'll-
State statute that allows boards of education within their districts.
That would be the
to do
Hampton Bay
exactly
School
that.
District. All right, well, I'm going to speak in front of them. The last thing, which I wrote to you about, is the parking there at the senior center. You know, you move the code enforcement, the fire marshal, animal control, they park their vehicles close to the center, their private cars. I wrote that across the street they can park, because you built those parking spaces for the commuter train. They really haven't gravitated there. We still have a problem. The summer's coming, we've got more people coming back. You know, a lot of the people have mobility problems. I park in King Cullen, I can walk, but, you know, a lot of the older women have walkers and everything, and there's only maybe 8 handicap spots. So if you can use your good influence to tell those people to park across the street, it'd be very helpful. And the other thing I want to discuss, we'll be very quick.
The other last thing?
Excuse me?
The other last thing, go ahead.
Yes, okay.
You said it was the last thing.
Is I had a piece in the paper about these battery storage systems, the BESS, Battery Energy Storage Systems. And I testified in front of the planning board, and I just wanted you to touch here with you, because they're very serious installations. As you know, because we're going over to different energy sources that are natural, you know, that they're not as constant in their energy generation. So you need to store energy from when, like, let's say the wind's not blowing or the sun's not out. So what they do is they have these battery storage systems, which are storage units filled with lithium-ion batteries. The problem with this is
30 seconds.
all right, these lithium-ion batteries are very pragmatic in terms of fire. They overheat, they catch on fire. Lithium is a reactive metal. I think you chemists, you know, it's one of the more reactive metals. It reacts with water. It gives off hydrogen and heat. So you get a cascading effect, which is called thermal runaway. And they end up being big fires in these places. They had 2 of them in Phoenix. So my problem with the planning board, I don't think they have the expertise to really get a handle on this thing. I recommended that they be put up at the airport in an industrial area, not a commercial area. You need a good source of water. As you may know, you can't extinguish them with water. You have to smother them, and all you can do is surround and drown them. So you need very good sources of water. These 2 locations, one especially on North Road, do not afford good sources of water. So maybe you guys can look into that. I know you have that firewall between the planning board, but this is a safety issue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Charles, is there anyone online who wishes to be heard?
Yeah.
There is? Charles? All right, I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Board, I need to ask for a recess for 15, maybe 20 minutes. I didn't think we'd go this late, and I have a meeting with County Fres, a Zoom meeting that's somewhat urgent related to Mecox flooding. And I'd like to be able to participate for at least a few minutes in that. So can we come back in? Can we resume at 4:30? Is everybody okay with that? We'll finish that. Sunday, can you do that?
Do I have a choice?
It's sort of an emergency, so.
Okay, Mecox Bay is important. Absolutely.
Anybody who wants to sit in my office on the Zoom is welcome to. Cindy, you're going to be on it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I make a motion to recess till 4:30.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to call this meeting back to order, the Southampton Town Board. So we had concluded public portion before we recessed. So we are moving to the agenda now. We will start with resolution number 569 of 2022, being offered by Councilman Bouvier. If you'd please read.
Town Board Resolution 2022-569 is to authorize the supervisor to execute a consulting services agreement with Laura Smith to provide professional services to the Community Preservation Fund.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is going to need to be tabled. We still haven't resolved this issue.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so can you just change your motion to motion to table?
Motion to table?
For the next town board meeting?
Yes,
The next
please.
town board meeting.
June
I'll
20th.
second that.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Sorry about that. All right.
Town Board Resolution 626 of 2022 to authorize the purchase of technology solutions from GovConnection Incorporated, DBA, connecting and using Uminia contract. Did I?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 627 of 2022, authorize supervisor to execute a contract with Suffolk County Office for the Aging for the residential repair program.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 628 of 22, authorize supervisor to sign 22022, extend and amend contract with Suffolk County Office of the Aging for the Senior Citizen Nutrition Program funding.
Second?
Why did that title sound strange? To sign, extend? Anyway, that's,
Extend.
all right. As it was a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 629, 2022, authorize supervisor to sign an agreement with Southampton Hospital for production assistance with the show Your Health Matters to be broadcast on Sun 20 TV.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Resolution 630 of 22, authorize supervisor to sign an agreement with Suffolk County for the distribution of STOA funds for the operation of the South Fork Commuter Connection bus service.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 631 of 22, authorize the supervisor to execute 2022 production assistance agreements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 632 of 22, authorize the supervisor to execute a 2022 annual software support and maintenance agreement with HLP Inc. for Chameleon software products for the animal shelter.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 633 of 22, authorize the supervisor to execute any and all documents pertaining to the 2022 transportation contract with Suffolk County Office for the Aging.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. 634 of 22, authorize the supervisor to sign documents as it relates to the subdivision map of Hampton's Ponquag, Hampton Bays.
Second.
It's two-lot subdivision. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 635 of 22, authorize the supervisor to sign professional services agreement with Leonard J. Marchese, MBA CPA.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Mr. Marchese would basically assisting the Controller's Office with various matters, likely the FEMP program and some of the other things at a billable rate of $185, not to exceed $35 for this year. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 636 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for demolition 1380 Flanders Road with Brian V. Klug Landscaper Incorporated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 637 of 2022, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract for full depth reclamation with Rosemar Contracting Incorporated.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. You both are seconding at the same time. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 638 of 2022, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract for furnish and install microsurfacing and/or crack sealing with Thomas H. Gannon and Sons Incorporated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 639 of 2022, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract for pavement repair with Rosemark Contracting Incorporated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 640 of 2022, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract with Grimco Incorporated for latex printer and plotter.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 641 of 2022, resolution authorizing the Parks Director to enter an interim agreements for mobile concession pursuant to Town Code, Chapter 111-7B2 for the 2022 summer and fall seasons at Good Ground Park.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 642 of 2022 is a resolution authorizing the supervisor to formally request participation in the Certified Local Government Program and authorizing the town attorney's office to negotiate a certification agreement.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 643 of 22, authorized use of Eastern Suffolk BOCES Cooperative Bidding Program.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 644 of 22, authorized supervisor to enter into agreement with Nelson Pope and Voorhees LLC for professional engineering services to include the updating of SECRA and the re-evaluation of the HBDOD for revitalization of the Hampton Bays Hamlet business area.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Just on the motion, so we don't have Janice here, but if anybody, does anybody have any questions about this? This would bring in Nelson Pope and Voorhees to assist us in the process, engaging the community, and any amendments or changes to the plan. We had a speaker earlier in public portion who did mention this, so I don't know if anybody had any questions.
I will be abstaining if I do own property. If the borders of the HBDOD stay as they are, I do own property within it, so I will be abstaining.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, just that the current zoning in that area was made in 1972.
And this plan is broken down, it's not just a lump, it's very broken down and specified as to what it's being used for. So.
Yeah, and this, this plan that's been recommended in terms of this agreement, Janice has been working on this, so she's not here, but it really is to engage the community in planning for their future. We did go through a process like this, so we're doing it again, and so.
But what I was saying is
it's unfortunately, it is expensive.
I was just
It
saying
was expensive last time, too.
It was a multifaceted plan. There's a lot more to it than just engaging the community, and it was all broken down into specific things.
Right.
Yep.
And we're still looking at options for
Yeah.
STPs and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot to be done before.
Okay, so we're moving forward. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, 1. With the clerk note, Councilman Martell's abstention. Okay, that was approved. Go ahead, Tom.
Town Board Resolution 645 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, 2022 notice to bidders for reconstruction of stairs at Camp Tekawitha.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That, by the way, as you all know, Camp Tekawitha is the Girl Scout camp, also known
The
as the
Trails
Girl Scout camp.
Advisory Committee is very excited about
Oh,
this.
the Boy Scouts are thrilled.
Yeah, it's the long,
we're
long
fine.
steps down to the water, finally.
Yep, and CPF is able to pay for that, so.
Great
All right, so that, I called the vote on that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was approved.
Town
Okay.
Board Resolution 646 of 2022, the 2022 notice to bidders for asphalt roller.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 647 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is a 2022 notice to bidders for farming at Sayre Field, 93 Butter Lane, Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. So this is that large piece of farmland that we actually own fully, sort of behind the church in Bridgehampton. And we put it out so that private farmers can farm it,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
There's actually, the one that's behind the church is actually owned by the church, but this is part of that 5, we own the 5 acres that's kind of between Sayers Court and the Northern Road, but.
It's not the piece that was bought for parking, not the square
No,
piece
no,
behind Corral.
no, but then there's a 9-acre piece or somewhere in that range that the church owns, that's directly behind the church or behind the museum, north of the park, and the piece that you're speaking of, Mr. Supervisor. And then our piece that we own here is 5 acres to the west of
Right.
the church-owned piece.
And it's been historically farmed.
No, right, the Wesnowskis had done it for years.
Yep.
And,
Right.
They gave it up a couple of years ago, and we didn't get any bidders last year. But part of the problem, I think, is that you need deer fencing in that area if you're going to be a crop farmer. So we may want to consider that.
Okay, so, did we vote? No, not yet? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 648 of 2022, reject bids and second notice to proposers for architectural and engineering services for the Southampton Head Start Center expansion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 649 of 22 accepts 2021 audited financial statements from the Rocky Smith LLP for the town of Southampton. Authorize the town clerk to publish notice of 2021 financial report.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. They had presented here, if you all remember, not too long ago. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Aye.
650 of 2022 accepts the December 31st, 2021 Community Preservation Fund audit from Cullen and Danowski LLP for the town of Southampton, and authorize the town clerk to publish notice of the Community Preservation Fund financial statements and independent auditor's report.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 651 of 2022 amends the 2022 budget for various departments.
Second.
Various.
Seconded by, what did you say, John?
Yep, my apologies.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 652 of 2022 amends the 22 to 26 capital budget for park
Second.
improvements. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 653 of 22, authorize adoption of the 2022 CPF pilot plan and payment of 2022 pilots.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 654 of 22, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell, authorizes Highway Fund pay-as-you-go for latex printer and plotter purchase.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 655 of 2022, create Trades Advisory Committee.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's a great initiative. Approved. 656 of 2022, accepting grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of the woods at Hampton Bays. So seconded by Councilman Martell, we held a hearing earlier about it. It's those 4 separate pieces. Though 2, I guess, are just separated only by a trail or something. And then the big piece in the back, and, well, 1 piece on the, I guess, along the roadway, too. So, all right, so we had a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 657 of 2022, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the North Sea Fire Department Annual Carnival from June 30th through July 3rd, 2022, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 658 of 2022, co-sponsored with Supervisor Schneiderman, authorized Channel Pond Canal dredge.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 659, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavonis, to update sales price and rental formula multipliers for units reserved for income-eligible households.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 660 of 2022 is accept the maintenance bond as it relates to the site plan of Hampton Bays Business District, Phases 5 through 245 Rogers Way, West Hampton.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 661, accept performance bond as it relates to the site plan of Hampton's Business District, Phase 5, 245 Rogers Way, West Hampton.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 662 of 22, co-sponsored by Councilman Bouvier, release of maintenance bond in connection with the site plan special exception for Aqua and Terra Realty Corporation.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 663 of 2022, 2022 part-time salaries.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 664 of 22, ratify stipulation of settlement with CSEA.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, it's a highway employee, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 665 of 22 appoints Alice Zobian to Senior Neighborhood Aid position in Senior Services.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved and congratulations. 666 of 22 appoints Ashley Andexer to Senior Office Assistant position in Human Resources.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations to Ashley. 667, 22, appoints John Hutchinson to Maintenance Mechanic 2 position in Parks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, congratulations to John. 668 of 22 appoints Brendan Carl to Maintenance Mechanic 1 position in Parks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved and congratulations. 669, 22 of 22 appoints John Sienna to Maintenance Mechanic 1 position in Parks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved and congratulations. 670 of 22 appoints Kathleen Galligan to the title of Deputy Controller.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, congratulations. 671 of 22 appoints Meredith Olenu to Office Assistant position in Water District.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations. 672 of 22, reassign Lauren Vasilla to Hampton Bays Water District.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 673 of 22 appoints Joshua Gembensky to Maintenance Mechanic 1 position in Water District.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, congratulations. 674 of 22,
On the motion, I'd just like Sunday to be added as co-sponsor.
Sunday? To add it, oh, you want to be.
I want to be added. I was
Oh.
asking
I
Sunday.
know, I was
I
wondering.
thought Sunday was gonna.
Yeah, if she wants to, sure.
That was on
That was on
6.
673?
on
674, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh,
I
you
was
are,
ahead of
oh,
you.
674
Yeah,
of
that's what we
22. John would like to co-sponsor,
Yes, please.
appointing Michelangelo Lieberman to senior planner position in land management. Would you like to second?
I will second it.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
And congratulations to
Aye,
Mike.
approved, and
Michelangelo.
congratulations to Michelangelo. 675 of 22, notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Albert W. Robinson Jr. and amend the CPF and stewardship plan to include that property.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. This is a $700,000 acquisition. This is a notice to hear it.
To hear it.
Yeah, so the hearing would take place on June 28th of this year, right, later this June, at 6
Next month.
PM here at Town Hall, this month. All right, there's a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 676 of 2022, a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 270, rental property, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamee.
Second?
Seconded, this also will be on June 28th. Are these notice to include the hybrid?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh, yes, they are.
Okay, all right, we had a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Where are we? 69, thank you.
That one that we just did, Cindy, Sean, there's a lot of components to that.
Yeah.
Can you just, before we move on to the next one, just sort of give us a flavor of what types of things you're doing here?
Sure. As simply as I could say it, one of my mentors used to say there's no loophole, there's only the law. People are owning and renting properties in ways that we did not even conceive when this section was drafted. Essentially, all of these changes to add administrative titles, to clarify appeals processes, to kind of specify and designate who can be an owner of property as defined in the section of code, who can be a renter, who can be an occupant. Is renting itself an act that is an offense without a permit? So these are all issues that we have to address. The town code evolves. Like I said, these were not methods of ownership or renting that anybody could have conceived when this code section was drafted. This is to update all those code sections and enforcement abilities. We're also trying to go paperless. So we're removing some of the notarization requirements to ease the e-permitting process. So some of these things are mere housekeeping. Some of them are to clarify and enhance enforcement ability. Overall, I'd invite anyone who has, an opinion either way to come out to our public hearing on the 28th at 6 and express and articulate their opinion. But it, in my opinion, is something that we really need to address and update.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, so we did vote on setting that public hearing, and they could come out, or they could also participate via Zoom. All right, 677 of 2022 is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 330-163, Organization and General Procedures of Zoning Board of Appeals, Chapter 330-181, Organization of Planning Board, to reestablish the term of zoning board and planning board members from 4 years to 7 years.
Second.
The second is, again, this is just a notice of public hearing. You don't have to support the initiative, but this is to allow public comment. So it's seconded by Councilman Schiavone. Is anything on the motion, any discussion? If not, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 678 of 2022 is notice of public hearing to consider amending various sections of town code in connection with cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments within the town of Southampton.
Second.
Second, we had discussed this,
I'm sorry, who was the second?
this is Councilman Bouvier. This was discussed at work session, so we've sort of, working with planning, incorporated everybody's thinking into possible zoning for cannabis dispensaries. There's a host of different setbacks involved, from everything from playgrounds to libraries to churches and schools and various parks and things like that. So we'll go through it, I guess, in more detail. But this sets the zoning in place for not just cannabis dispensaries, on-site cannabis consumption, which is another thing that's allowed under the New York State law. There, it really just limits it to nightclubs in general. If you have an existing nightclub, you can convert it to a dispensary. You can't do both. It's alcohol or marijuana, but that's sort of how that is handled. And I look forward to debating this and coming up with the best legislation to fit the town of Southampton.
And
So-
we also had a work session fairly in-depth about this.
Yep. So, this again, the hearing would be in person or via Zoom. This one, though, is July 12th, if I'm reading it right,
Yes. 1 PM.
July 12th at 1 PM, not June 28th. All right, so is motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Aye.
John, you're next.
I'm next.
You're next.
I'm at 679.
I think I'm on,
Would I miss something?
did I go too far?
Yeah, 78.
Oh, wait, 78, 679.
670,
Oh, so it's maybe 679, is that?
679.
All right, skipped it. All right, 679 of 2022, notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 330-248-5, entitled Canoe Place Inn, Canal and Eastern Properties, CPICE Maritime Plan Development District, for consistency with Town Board Resolutions number 2022-260, and to allow for historical signage and setbacks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. This also will be a hearing on July 12th, 2022.
Okay.
I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Page 84. Town Board Resolution 680 of 2022, accept a TDR deed of residual fee from Spinney Road LLC for property to be maintained as open space located at 57 Spinney Road, East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map as indicated in the resolution pursuant to Southampton Town Code 244-4, obtaining a development rights certificate, and Chapter 247, General Municipal Law of the State of New York.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara.
This was the one that
Yep.
was subject today that we discussed with Dave.
It's for .12706.
It's about a little over
Development
half an
rights.
acre. Yep.
Okay, it was, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 681 of 22, approval of Village of Southampton revised concept plan for CPF acquired Moses Lane parcel. You know, we have, I don't know if we've seen it.
No.
I've seen it. You guys haven't seen it. Why don't we?
Yeah, we have.
The revised one?
Emailed.
Yeah, I thought we saw it.
If you're prepared to
Oh, is
vote.
that, oh,
Question
yeah,
about
yeah,
parking.
yeah.
So, I mean, they haven't done much. I think they
present?
dropped from 4 tennis courts to 2
it wasn't
tennis
a big-
courts, or whatever. There's 2 bocce courts, 2 tennis
Was
courts.
this a work session?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
name?
Yeah, they,
Controller did.
Was there some other change made to that?
No.
they moved they changed the parking configuration from the original plan. Yeah, I mean, if you want, we can certainly table this, and we could bring it up in work session and put it all, and finalize it at the next meeting.
No, I'm good with, as long as it's what we saw in the work session.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I don't,
That's what I'm, because,
When you say they reconfigured the parking, did they make it a
Right,
little
we did
bigger
discuss
or a
it
little
with the
smaller?
mayor.
I thought we
Did
did.
the
Because
village
smaller is the
administrator
problem.
presented it?
yeah.
I don't think it's smaller per se.
No, because I remember you bringing that question up, and if there's
Yeah, I-
more than, there was more than you thought was there, because there was a whole nother area.
You know, the plan.
I remember the parking coming up.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to confirm that what you're talking about here in this resolution.
What we saw.
What we saw in the work session.
I'm
So why
gonna-
don't we table it?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a
Yeah,
motion to
I'm sure
table
we'll
it.
table
Let's
it.
make sure that we're all comfortable with the changes. So, I'll change my motion to motion to table.
Second.
Seconded by
All of us.
Councilman Scavone. Is that all right?
Okay.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and that's
Aye.
tabled to the next meeting.
Okay.
And we'll look at those 2 plans at work session. All right, we're going to walk-ons. We've got 40650, which is warrant number 11, capital number 11, CPF 11, and payroll liability,
Second?
seconded by Councilman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right, 40669 is co-sponsored by the whole board. This amends the town holiday schedule for just this year in cooperation with CSEA. And it will allow for Juneteenth. Yep, it's Juneteenth, which falls on a Sunday, so Monday will then be the celebrated holiday, which happens to be June 20th, not on Father's Day, which is Juneteenth this year. And I just wanted to thank the board and everybody for working on this, and Sandra Cercioni from Human Resources and a number of other people as we sort of, we have been negotiating with the union to permanently make Juneteenth a holiday. But it is tied in with a whole bunch of other moving pieces that we have not been able to finalize. The hope was to have it finalized, so we sort of got caught up, but will allow for this year, even without that broader package, it's sort of a one-time exemption, so we can get the holiday celebrated, as well as we have a lot of employees who have children, the schools are off, the banks are closed, the post office is closed, and it'll bring us into alignment with the state and the federal government and many other governmental entities that are recognizing Juneteenth. Hopefully, people will take this time off to learn about Juneteenth, to understand the importance of Juneteenth in our nation. And with that, anybody else have anything they want to say on it? No? All right.
That we do it.
We had a second? All right.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman McNamara. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. And this is a related resolution, 40670, ratify MOA with CSEA regarding the observation of Juneteenth this year. Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. We are going to try to do our best to get notification, not only to department heads, but also to the public, that town hall will not be open, the transfer stations will not be open. Parks will be opened on Juneteenth. But
Beaches.
even the senior center will not be open, so. All right, so I am up to 40672. It's a notice of public hearing to consider request for 2022 fundings to supplement ongoing community preservation fund, CPF water quality improvement project for Mecox Bay.
On the motion, I'd like to be
Yes.
added as a co-sponsor.
Can we add Councilman Bouvier as a co-sponsor? And this will put an additional $350,000 into the line that the trustees use for managing Mecox Bay, and this will allow them, what the issue right now that we're having, just so everybody knows, and I don't know how much money will be needed for this, if any, depending on the resources. Councilman McNamara was able to attend a meeting with me, but the water level is getting higher and higher in Mecox Bay. Normally, we would open the cut, the trustees would open the cut, that's how they manage it, they have a 5-year permit to do so. They can't open the cut because there is a nesting pair of plovers in vicinity, so we're trying to develop another means to relieve the rising levels that are causing septic systems to fail along Mecox, which has the potential to enter fecal coliform into Mecox. Having people not able to flush their toilets is a public health issue. So we are working with multiple agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, DEC, Army Corps, County Fres. We've got lots of town folks involved, from the trustees, obviously, James Duryea, Marty Shea. Everybody is, Tom Houghton, the town engineer, trying to develop a solution so if we need to call an emergency, we have another way to relieve that pressure. That one nesting pair of plovers are unlikely to fly away from this area until the end of July. And we don't know how many rain events we'll have, so we're trying to develop a solution that is sensitive to the plover activity in that area, but also deals with the emerging public health crisis. So I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Sure, I got a couple. The management plan that was recreated in 2018, has that been accepted and adopted by the New York State DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers? Do we have a management plan that has been accepted by other agencies?
I believe that.
I believe the
that-
DEC
the
adopted
case,
it.
yeah.
First
They
one
did.
that was developed.
Yeah.
Well, the first one was developed and then it was
Yeah, I think
presented
in the
to
last
us,
6
it
months or
was
so,
funded, and then
it's
the
finally been
management
a,
plan was changed. But they did adopt it, okay.
I don't know if they formally adopted it, but it is referenced in the five-year
yeah.
permit.
No, they
no, it
did.
is,
They
yeah.
do consult.
They did?
Yes.
Okay.
But my only comment is that, you know, this is the second time we're going to this fountain with CPF money.
Yeah.
And I just really want to be cognizant of this, you know, we're doing these changes and going through these things. There's supposed to be an accounting for the first $450,000 that was put out. You know, how that was accounted for and what that was used for, and we need to have the same going on this, crisis or not.
No,
I just
I-
want to be
I
very
agree.
careful how we're spending our 20%.
If we're not able to get equipment provided to us by the state, and we have to use a private company to do this, and what I mean by this is the plan that is emerging would put into Mecox a series of pumps, potentially 4 pumps, submersible. It's actually not submersible pumps. They'd probably be placed in parking area, and then a tube, 8-inch tube, 4 of them would go out into the bay, and then would then disperse the water onto the beach somewhere
In a way that doesn't erode the beach.
in a way that doesn't erode the beach. So
Perhaps
it's
subterranean.
it's perhaps, but it's more expensive than opening and closing the cut.
Well,
And-
it is over the short term, but,
I just
you know,
think
we
too-
keep going through this a lot, and there's solutions, you know, we did have the
Oh, sure.
the Bay Seawater Exchange, we did have
There may
the
be a-
state do a study for us, so.
This may help, the pumping it will relieve, will lower the level of the bay. It will not add any salinity to the bay, nor oxygen, nor cool the temperature.
Exactly my point.
It is not, it is not environmentally, it doesn't address those other water quality standards. It will relieve flooding. So it's really more of flooding, but the flooding problem would normally be just opening the cut, but the flooding problem is an environmental problem because of the inundation of sanitary systems along Mecox.
But, you know, we've spent a lot of money putting in monitors, salinity monitors. We have a lot of systems that are in place there that are designed to prevent exactly that from happening. So,
Right.
you know, I think it's something that we should seriously look at as a larger scale problem, because
Yeah.
we keep coming back to this every year.
This resolution, by the way, doesn't authorize that emergency project. It simply puts money into that line that's used to manage the cut. So, all right. Any other questions on that? All right, so there's a motion and a second, I believe, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Aye.
John was
I
the
was.
second. Right? Okay, we have one more. Where is it? Thank you, Rick. This is docket ID number 40674, resolution authorizing a change in a nonconforming use pursuant to Southampton Town Code 330-185.1. Let me get a second, and then I can explain it.
Second?
All right, seconded by Councilman Martell. So we held this hearing earlier. This is that formerly Briscoe Protective, the commercial property that Dan's is either looking to acquire or has acquired, trying to set up their office there, but there are limitations on the uses by an earlier zoning board determination when they went from one non-conforming use to another. The alarm company to 2 office type of uses, accounting, insurance, legal services. doesn't specifically say a media company can have offices there. So in exchange, they're willing to lose one of the two uses. The use that they're proposing is substantially compatible with the types of uses that the zoning board had approved. It now goes to us, not the zoning board, and now there are criteria that never existed before that we put in place. So there are findings. This also went in front of the planning board, which required three things. They wanted to prohibit any distribution, which they saw would be traffic generating. They also wanted to limit special events, and they also wanted to put some limitations on signage, which those recommendations are incorporated into this. And if Dan's no longer wants to use it as their office, they still would be allowed not two uses, just one, but limited to the original uses the zoning board had approved, plus this additional use as a publication office. And that's basically it. There's a time sensitivity to it, I guess, because of the sale. The Dans obviously can't operate out of that location until we allow it. I do believe that this property ought to be commercially zoned, and this would not be an issue at that point because it wouldn't be a non-conforming use, it would be a conforming use. I think it's miszoned, but that we're not going to fix immediately, so that's for another day. So does anybody have any questions on this?
I've asked mine.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. So that is the last of the resolutions. Is there any other business? Any other business? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.